is no hospital in fucking history. There is no hospital before, during, or after this life. There is a morgue on the same fucking level
Oh my
as, as,
god.
as regular
With the
hospital rooms.
fucking
What, a
blinds
one that
open
has
with
a
just a
window that
naked
you can just
corpse.
look in and
Oh
naked
my
dead
god.
bodies? What?
Oh my.
Hey guys, and welcome to Video Express. I'm your host, Matt, and with me as always is my partner in slime, my BFF, Katie.
Hey guys, it's great to be back.
And today we are kicking off our first episode of Maximum Overview, where we're going to be talking about the newer movies on the side of the horror exploitation sci-fi realm. Katie, what are we talking about today?
Oh, we got a good one for you guys today. So we are diving into the newly released Halloween Kills, directed by David Gordon Green, produced by John Carpenter, and co-written by David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. This is the second part of a new trilogy that Green started a few years ago with Halloween 2018, and it will conclude in 2022 with Halloween Ends. And we have some thoughts. So before we get too into those thoughts, I wanted to say a couple of things up top. So firstly, we will be mainly focusing on Halloween Kills as it is the one that just came out. But as I mentioned, it's part of a trilogy that seems to be taking place on the same night. So we'll probably have a few tangents where we kind of talk about Halloween 2018 as well. And then we kind of both wanted to just touch on, for some reason, this movie has been really divisive. I'm not sure why, like to the point that people are like arguing online and like insulting people's intelligence over their opinions on it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe we've all just been inside for too long, but we don't like to just, we've said it before on the show, we don't like to just trash movies and be super negative, but we do have some thoughts and they're not all positive. So if you agree, that's great. If you don't agree, that's great too. Like we're just happy that people are talking about a Halloween movie.
So that's a perfect segue to go right into this, and I love that you said that we don't like trashing movies, we don't like the negativity and stuff, and we don't understand the divisiveness of this movie. However, um, today is the day that I break that rule for myself, and I will trash this movie because I fucking hate it.
Bum bum bum.
And we're going to dive right into it. But I do want to touch on a little bit of the divisiveness and just say that like these are purely my opinions. My opinions should not convince you, the listener, one way or the other, whether you should like it or if you should love it. Like, just remember, this is just my thoughts on the movie. If you don't like my thoughts, that's 100% awesome. Uh, we don't all have to agree on things, but I think the one thing we should agree on is we should not, like Katie said, insult each other's intelligence. I've been chastised for hating the movie. I have been told numerous times that I'm not a Halloween fan, and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I don't know how to enjoy a slasher movie. Funny enough, these people don't actually know me to know that
Of
the
course.
original Halloween movie is my all-time favorite fucking movie. I have a shrine in my man cave built just for the Halloween series. um, I definitely know what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to slasher films, but remember, they're my opinions. Just like that's their opinions. But either way, I will say the movie did do something to me, and it was ugly. And I've cooled down since. But opening night, I saw the movie. I was that's the angriest I've ever been, and I'm not being like I'm not joking. The movie did something to me fucking emotionally, and I was so mad. I've never been this mad over a movie in my entire life. I think the last time a movie made me this mad was the Terminator Genesis or whatever, and even
Oh
then,
god.
like that had moments about it that I enjoy. But this movie as a whole angered me to the point where I was actually getting mad at people for saying that they love it. Like, I wasn't like reaching out to them and telling them that they're wrong or shit like
Right.
that. I wasn't like personally attacking them. But when I would see like a Facebook or Instagram post and people were like, "Oh, it's the best one ever," I was like internally fucking glowing red. And I'm not talking like
Yeah.
T chest. I'm talking like hellfire, like burning inside. I was so mad, and like my girlfriend was freaking out because I was constantly yelling either at the phone or at my computer, going, "How do you think this is a good movie?" Uh,
See, this movie did something to people. Like,
yes, and like I can vouch for that. It did something to me. And it's never happened before. And like when people come to me and they're like, and I've seen memes made of this, and it just irks me even more. The people is like, "Oh, well, you can love your cheesy B movies and spend $40 on a criterion of a 1-star movie, but you can't enjoy this." And let me tell you why you're wrong and why it's a really shitty assessment. You enjoy movies because you know, because of what that movie is or what that movie represents or the
mhm,
style of that movie. Okay. I love certain B movies because I know that they're cheesy. We all know that they're cheesy. We know the goal that that movie has set and the style that that movie has set. However, if you're going into a movie that A has already established that they're retconning an entire franchise and is billing themselves as a sequel to one of the greatest slasher films of all time, and that slasher film is Halloween, and that movie is serious, dark, and moody, but then yours has a style that is literally all over the fucking place. One minute
yeah,
it's dark and serious as shit, then the next minute it's fucking goofy, and then the next minute it just doesn't know what it wants to be. That's
yeah,
what the reasons why I hated this movie so much. And it's, you're allowed to like different genres. You're allowed to like different movies. But if I have a problem with a movie and its tone and its writing, then that does not have anything to do with other movies that I like or other movies that I adore, because I'm hating it as a whole.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Like
love
it
Spookies. I love the movie Spookies. I've got the fucking I've got a theatrical one sheet, an original theatrical one sheet
Christ.
of the movie Spookies in my man cave. All right. Not many people have that kind of shit hanging up in there. And I love that movie. And that movie was a fucking mess. But we knew it was a mess. It was we knew what we are getting into with Spookies. We know that
Yeah.
what type of movie that is. You
So
can't make a movie and like beat people over the head with it and tell them this is what it is, this is what you're getting, and then you watch it and it's a fucking it's a train wreck. Halloween
right.
Kills to me is a fucking train wreck, and I knew I was going to start rambling as right out the gate. But let me just say this, and I'm gonna hand it over to you, Katie, and let you steer this ship. Uh, I just want to say flat out, it's not only do I think this is like not only like just a terrible Halloween movie. Up front, I think this is just flat out a terrible movie.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like I don't feel quite as strongly as you, but I definitely like had some complaints about it, which I'd love to get into in a moment. But you mentioned kind of retconning the timeline, and I wanted to just touch on that really quick for our listeners. So Halloween 1978 came out 40 years before Halloween 2018. There were several different, there's like four different Halloween timelines, which I didn't know until like 2 weeks ago, so that's fun. So basically, Halloween 2018 is saying that everything after the original Halloween movie never happened. So we are picking up exactly 40 years later. So, like Halloween 2, Laurie in the hospital, none of that shit ever happened. This is just straight up like only the events to be taken into consideration are from the original 1978, which kind of leads to some of my issues. But I mean, I think this movie suffers from a lot of the same things that 2018 suffered from, which, I there are definitely parts in both of those movies that I do like and do enjoy. But my main thing is that it just feels like very all over the place, like you said. Like this script is just all over the place. I don't know who the protagonist is supposed to be. I mean, it's like obviously, I guess it's Laurie's story, but is it? Because she doesn't really get to do anything in like either of these movies. I mean, she has some moments in the first one, but yeah, it's just there's a lot of really discorded pacing and like tone, weird tonal shifts from like a comedy back into a horror, which sometimes works really well in other movies, but in both of these movies, it just felt a little all over the place. And then kind of my biggest complaint in 2018 that leads into Halloween Kills is I don't like the like subplot of the Dr. Loomis clone being like also trying to be a serial killer and being crazy, and like he's actually the reason that Michael has ended up back in Haddonfield. Like that just was like I just did not like that at all.
As far as 2018 goes, no, I did not like it. A matter of fact, Halloween Resurrection has always was always, and I think it's everybody's list of least favorite Halloween movies.
Oh yeah.
Um, but here's the weird thing about me, and again, this is just my opinions. Take them how you want. Um, even even Halloween Resurrection, that I would say is a turd, and it was bottom of my list, is I could still enjoy it. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all of the Halloween sequels are good. They're not. I'm look at me. I'm wearing a Halloween Part 5 shirt right now. Halloween Part 5 is a turd. Um, but there's things I can enjoy about it. There's things that feel like a Halloween movie. There's Dr. Loomis, like Dr. Loomis's performance in Halloween 5 is what keeps me on board with loving that movie. There's tones, and there's just things about it. And then all the sequels have something about it to love, whether it be Michael himself, whether it be kills. It's usually Dr. Loomis that kind of like seals the deal for me with why I love certain sequels. Um,
Mhm.
but 2018, yes, H2O didn't have Dr. Loomis, but it did capture, I felt perfectly, the relationship between Laurie and Michael, and it felt like a good uh, sequel to Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2. Halloween 2018 to me had some really good moments, but overall I was like, it's nothing new, and that's what pissed me off. You retcon all of these sequels that has a fan base, and after you've gotten rid of them, you cherry pick kills. I'm not like you literally cherry pick kills from those movies and
Yeah.
redo them in 2018, like the old woman with the curler in her hair.
Yeah.
Like that's literally a character from the original Halloween 2. There were so many kills, there's so many moments, there are so many callbacks. There's the trick or treaters wearing the Halloween 3 mask.
Yep.
And like to me, you're kind of like spoiling this mood that you're trying to set. You're taking me out of the movie by referencing movies that you're saying no longer exist. I am the biggest advocate for Halloween 3. It's one of my all-time, it's my second favorite Halloween movie. Even though Myers is not in it, blah blah blah, boo hoo, cry me a river. Um, but if you're going to use the mask from those movies, I get it. It's cool. Whatever, man. Yeah, that's an awesome homage, but it takes me out of it. It immediately
Right.
takes me out because to the general fan, they don't know. They don't know what the fuck these masks are. But to the hardcore fans, and let's face it, 99% of probably the people that's going to see these movies are hardcore fans. It takes
Mhm.
me directly out of the movie because I see it as the fan service. And
Yeah.
I enjoy fan service, but only if it's done well, and only if you're not telling me that these new things no longer exist, but
Right.
then you're using them to your own advantage. And I think it's really a cheap tactic on the
Yeah.
filmmaker's part.
The
And
the f-
I
Oh,
don't
sorry,
know.
go ahead.
2018, like it had, again, it had some really good creepy moments. The bathroom scene where he kills the podcast people, like I
Yeah.
really thoroughly enjoyed that. Um, there was just a lot of things in it that didn't make sense, like the Sartain subplot that went literally nowhere. Um, the something that also bugged me about 2018 was who who in like the federal agency area of keeping like evidence willy nilly just handed over Michael Myers'
To
mask
a
to these random
podcaster?
ass podcasters.
What the hell? Like, okay, like,
Like
yeah,
like
that was
who,
oh my god.
what hoops did they jump through to do? I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's a lot of like weird lapses in logic, which I want to get into, but you mentioned fan service, which is something that really jumped out to me when I was rewatching 2018 last week. So the way I watched it was that I rewatched Halloween 1978 and then immediately followed it with Halloween 2018 because hey, that's supposed to be the continuation of the story. And the amount of like, hey, remember this exact shot from the first movie
Yep.
moments that there are is like it's way too much. Like it's like, okay, I get it. You did your homework. You know what you're talking about, but it like it is just so surface level to me. Like having a couple of those moments I can understand, but it just started to get to the point where it's like, am I just supposed to like point at the screen and be like, I understood that reference?
That's
Like
exactly what
it's
it is.
just
It's
too
exactly what
much.
it is.
It's just too much. Like they really should have calmed down. Like I feel like if you're gonna like I think retconning an entire, almost 3 decades of sequels is definitely a risky choice. I understand why they'd want to do it though, and I think in some ways it was the right choice to present a cleaner timeline to potentially a new audience. I think that was the goal. Was like we're going to clean up this timeline a little bit and just make something new that also is tied connected to the old very directly. But it's the focus of that from there that is just all over the place, and like the logic of some of these, the way that people react to Michael and like think about Michael and like the way that like Laurie's character is and stuff, it doesn't really, I feel like people are acting like they know about Michael from all the other like 11 sequels, but they don't. All they know is that one night 40 years ago, some guy went crazy, broke out of an insane asylum, and killed like 4 people, which is a lot, 3 people,
Well,
which
he
don't get
killed
me
4, but, for all they know, he only killed 3 because the 4th one would have been the guy that he killed to get the coveralls from. That Dr. Loomis
right.
finds the body, yeah, at the
Right, right,
train
right.
track.
So
Yeah.
so don't get me wrong, like that is traumatizing. It's a horrible thing, especially for a small town. I can see them definitely still, feeling the effects of that a little bit, but there's this kind of weird contrast of like in 2018, it feels like the whole town is kind of moved on and over it and just kind of treat it like this spooky story that gets told every now and then, except for Lori, who has gone full like doomsday prepper, and she is like Michael proofed her house as if she has seen every Halloween movie that we, the audience, have seen. Like we know that he can be exploded and like set on fire and like shot a billion times. Like all she knows
But those
is
things
that
don't
she
exist anymore.
yeah, exactly. Like for all she knows is that a man attacked her, killed her friends. I understand she's very traumatized from that. And then she saw that he was shot, fell out a window, and still managed to get away. But then, according to 2018 and Kills, was then later arrested that night and put away for 40 years. So, like, I don't understand this, like, hyper vigilant. She's raised her daughter to, like, be like little mini Rambo, like that. And again, trauma affects everyone differently. It makes, I can sort of suspend disbelief to get it, but it feels like a lot of things in both of these movies are like relying on the audience knowing more about Michael Myers than the people in the movie seem to know about Michael Myers.
So, you hit the nail on the head 100%. I'm gonna get through these 3 things, and I think we're going to jump right in to kill
Perfect.
with what you're saying here. So I just want to throw this part out when I was talking about the cherry picking of things, to use to your own advantage. And this something that they did that really pisses me off, and not it doesn't just piss me off that they did it; it pisses me off that the fans love it. And let's get this also out of the way right out the gate, okay? And I'm sure I'll hear the fucking booze already, and we haven't even fucking posted this fucking episode yet, and I can already hear the booze. I love Rob Zombie, okay? Unabashedly, I am a Rob Zombie
Me
fanatic. I
too.
love everything that he does, his movies, his music, whatever. Love Rob Zombie, okay? I also love Rob Zombie's Halloween, and I especially love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, okay? Now that that's out of the way, something that people always bitched about and talked shit about was the mask that Rob Zombie used in his Halloween movies. The rotted, kind of decayed looking mask, right?
Mhm.
but it was okay for these fuckers to do in Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. I don't understand. Like
Right.
it's almost it's like the mask in 2018 and the mask in Rob Zombie's first Halloween movie. Um, stylistically, they are the same.
Yeah.
They're both they're both supposed to be aged, and they're all cracked and withered and weathered and gross and everything. But that's okay. And here's my assumption of why people are okay with that, because John Carpenter produced these movies.
Yep.
John Carpenter's name is on it, and so is Jamie Lee Curtis's. So automatically fans give it a fucking pass and will hail whatever. Look, again, I just talk shit about Jamie Lee Curtis doing shit for a paycheck. John Carpenter is the poster boy for handing out his fucking palm and doing
Right.
whatever. Like he wanted nothing to do with Halloween after like the second or third one. Has washed his hands of this fucking series. But as soon as Blumhouse, however the fuck you say it, started knocking, they're like, hey, and they're waving fucking money in his face. He's like a fucking donkey with a carrot. Okay, so just get that
Yeah.
out of the way. Like I feel like it's unfair to talk shit about the Mask and Rob Zombie's movies and love the Mask in these movies. Moving on to that, you were talking about like how 2018, like you're 100% right. How Michael Myers killed three people, right?
Yeah.
Technically four, but three main people: Bob, Linda, Annie. Okay, he chased Laurie for all of 20 minutes. Okay. Within 20 minutes, he sliced her arm. She fell down the steps. He chased her across the road. She hit him in the neck with a needle. He chased her back upstairs. She hid in a closet. He busted through the closet. She poked him in the eye with a hanger. She stabbed him in the chest. He fell down. He set back up. He tried to strangle her. Loomis came in, shot him 6 times. He fell out the window. So she literally, it might even been less than 20 minutes. She came face to face with Michael Myers for 15 to 20 minutes, right? And for the next 40 years, she has been doomsday prepping for this guy that she just thinks is like this pure evil menacing guy that's haunting her and is coming for her every Halloween. And like you said, like has been prepping her daughter to be the next John Connor and all of this shit, right? Okay, that makes no sense. You This is why I think getting rid of the original Halloween 2 and getting rid of the brother and sister storyline is fucking you over. Okay? In Halloween Kills, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but in Halloween Kills, the one of the last things we hear from Laurie, that pissed me off so much, is her big fucking Shakespearean speech that should have been a Dr. Loomis line, but coming from her it sounds ridiculous. But her
Mm-hmm.
big Shakespearean speech of how the more Michael kills, the more he transcends, and that he's pure evil. And we keep hearing these speeches throughout this entire movie. But how do you know this?
Yeah, where is this coming
You
from?
dealt with this guy for 15 minutes 40 years ago and have not had any dealings with him since. He's obviously only killed like 3 or 4 people. But you talk about these things that he is and these things that he does, but you have nothing to back that up. And to me, uh, it no longer makes it scary if you're just some random victim that he was after that he no longer gives a shit about. But if you add Halloween 2 back into the mix, all right. He's now killed like fucking 20 some people. He's killed an entire fucking hospital staff.
Yeah.
He's relentlessly after you because there is some mysterious bloodline shit going on here because he killed his first sister when he was 6 years old. And we don't know why, but he is after you because you are also his sister. That's enough mystery for me. And I think that makes it scary that no matter what, he will stop at nothing to
For
kill
her.
you because he is after you. We don't know why. And he
Everyone
will,
else is just in the way, but he's after Lori.
and if you
Like,
get in his way, you're fucking dead. You are donezo. And if you have anything to do with his target, you're done. This guy hates and has an inner like anger for his family so bad that he's got to kill it and anything associated with it, right? And
Yeah.
he is now at this point by Halloween 2 killed all of these people. And the scariest thing is not only is he killing everybody that is like, got something to do with the person he's after, but he is like fucking killing random people along the way.
Yeah.
But now you're getting rid of that. You're getting rid of the actual boogeyman aspect of this character to make us try to like connect and feel something for somebody that's just a random victim that faced off against him for 15 minutes. And
Yeah,
now we're
that they
supposed
make
to
a
believe.
point to say in Halloween Kills isn't really that big of a deal anymore. Like she's
Right.
just like you said, just some random victim. And it's like, but the people making these movies know that we know that Laurie is like the girl of Halloween. Like it
Right.
is Laurie's story. It is Laurie versus Michael, Laurie trying to get away from Michael. And we're here as fans to see this final showdown between Laurie and Michael. But you're telling me that none of those other movies that we saw ever happened, and that now Laurie is just some random so and so that just happens to be like, no wonder they didn't focus on her that much or make like a clear protagonist, because it seems that he's just this random killing machine now.
Right. And exactly. So at that point, why do we care? Where is this going? What is this story supposed to be? We're supposed to care. And look, I feel like we're pretty much done with 2018. All right, we both
Yeah,
established.
yeah, let's just
Yeah,
get
like,
into it.
all right. So we're into Halloween Kills, okay? And now you're gonna have to try to help steer me a little bit here, Katie, because I'm
Yeah.
about to fucking dive in like hardcore, okay? To what just pisses me off. All right, so we just talked about Laurie and how, all right, we've established that the original storyline or the original franchise no longer exists. So there's no brother and sister storyline. She at this point is just some random victim who has been haunted for 40 years about some guy she doesn't know, but
And everyone thinks she's crazy.
and everyone thinks she's crazy, right? But now we're introduced to legacy characters. All right, we're Tommy, who she babysat in the first movie. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we've also got Lindsay Wallace, who Annie was babysitting, and who Jamie Lee Curtis's character was later babysitting after Annie dropped her off. All right,
Mm-hmm.
and then we've got Lonnie Elam, who is like the smallest character in the original movie, so small that they had to create
To make it up.
a backstory for him to have an encounter with Michael, which doesn't make sense, and I'll point that out here in a minute.
Yep.
Give it to him, and then they bring in Nurse Marion from the first movie as a legacy character, and then also ex Sheriff Brackett. Okay,
Yep.
Annie's father. So you're bringing in these legacy characters, and then we established in 2018 that the town has moved on, and that Laurie, for whatever reason, is just batshit crazy, and for 40 years has been haunted by this guy who tried to randomly kill her and killed her friends. Okay, now we find out that there's more people, legacy characters that are haunted by what Michael Myers did to them, but technically he didn't do nothing except for Sheriff Brackett. He killed his daughter. So I feel like of anybody in Halloween Kills that should have had the limelight, it should have been
It
Brackett.
should have been Sheriff Brackett.
But
Yeah.
they pissed that away and treated his character like shit in this movie. But let's do this. Let's dive into the legacy characters, okay?
Yeah.
Let me start with my first hit. Why the fuck? Or let's set this up first. All right, all the legacy characters that I mentioned, except for Brackett. Tommy and Lindsay and Marion and Lonnie are get together every Halloween night to commemorate what happened 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we as the audience are led to believe that these four people every Halloween for the past 40 years get together on Halloween night and get drunk and tell the same fucking stories over and over again. When Tommy literally had maybe a 5 minute run in with Myers,
Yeah.
Lonnie, that again they had to make up some shit for him in this movie, and Lindsay, who also with Tommy only had like a 5 minute encounter with Myers, and then Nurse Marion Chambers. Okay, let me throw this out here. This is the first thing that pissed me off in this movie. When I knew that she was going to be in this movie, I didn't know that they were going to go with the storyline that they were all together. I thought maybe they were going to do something where she rolls into town to help with what's going
Mm.
on because she's pissed off too. But no, they go the route that every 40 years she hangs out with these people, okay? Here's the
Yeah.
problem. Nurse Marion Chambers was Dr. Loomis's nurse at Smith's Grove Sanitarium, Warren County Sanitarium, okay?
Yeah.
In the original Halloween, Nurse Marion is driving Dr. Loomis to Smith's Grove to pick up Michael Myers and to give him Thorazine so they can take him to a hearing so they can transfer his ass to a new asylum, okay? They
Right.
get to Smith's Grove. All the patients have been let out. Loomis gets out of the vehicle to go call for help. Myers attacks the vehicle that Nurse Marion is in, spooks her. She jumps out. He takes the car. Loomis says, "The evil is gone. The evil is gone away from here." The following morning, okay, Loomis is talking to Dr. Wynn, who is evidently the head over Smith's Grove. And Loomis is talking about how we got to put on the APB and, get to Haddonfield. Dr. Wynn says, "For Christ's sake, Sam, Haddonfield is 150 miles away from here. Now he can't even drive a car." And Loomis says, "Well, he was doing very well last night. Maybe someone around here gave him lessons." We just established the Smiths Grove Sanitarium is 150
Yep.
miles from Haddonfield, which means that Nurse Marion, let's just say that she doesn't, live exactly where she works. She at least lives within 20 miles of where she works. So I'm going to give her
Yeah.
the advantage of 100 miles. Okay. Should be 150, but we're just going to be nice and say she lives 100 miles for Haddonfield. You mean to tell me that this woman drives 100 miles every Halloween to hang out with people that she doesn't even know, that she
They're
never
like
came,
20 years younger than her.
that are 20 years younger, hell, probably even younger than that.
Yeah.
But at least 20 years younger than her that she's never met, that she's never come across. But she drives 100 miles every year to hang out with these people and talk about the time that Michael Myers stole the car that she drove. Bullshit. That's like some
Yeah, that
really terrible writing to try to fucking shoehorn in a legacy character.
yeah, it's like it's mildly explainable. Like I could explain that in that perhaps maybe they haven't been meeting for 40 years straight, but since the advent of social media, they've like since reconnected through like some survivors group or something. They've somehow like reconnected and wanted to meet up, but it still seems forced, like you
Oh, it's
said.
so
Like I
forward.
feel like while that could technically explain how they would be like have even been introduced to each other or know each other, it definitely feels strange, and it just adds to this weird shift from the first movie where it's like nobody gives a shit about Laurie. Everyone just treats her like she's crazy, and they're like, why doesn't she just get over it? It was like 40 years ago. And
Right.
then you've got these guys that are apparently coming into town every Halloween,
150
and
miles away.
like yeah, and like they are also traumatized in their own ways, but like nobody seems to give a shit. And then all of a sudden by the second movie, this whole town is like traumatized and
Right.
incensed by these acts of violence that and it's trying to do this like this narrative on like how trauma can affect a whole town, and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, I got one last thing to say about Nurse Mary, and then we'll jump to the next legacy character. Um, Something that H2O handled fucking brilliantly was Nurse Marion. So Danny McBride and David Gordon Green and Jason Blum, you know what? You're not fucking fancy. You're not the first people to bring her back. Okay, she was in the original Halloween. She was brought back in Halloween 2, which you already retconned, and she was in Halloween H2O, which you fucking have already retconned. But H2O handled her return fucking brilliantly because right off the gate, she's living in some town called Langdon, Illinois. Okay, so she's nowhere near Haddonfield because she has no reason to be.
Right.
And she arrives to find out that somebody has broken into her house. It's Halloween, so she's automatically spooked because of what happened to her 20 years ago. Makes sense, okay? Why is
Mhm.
Myers after her? He's breaking into there because she has Dr. Loomis's old files because she was his nurse. That's how he finds out where Laurie's living, okay? Brilliantly written. I'm sorry. I think that's a really great way to write that
Yeah.
character and to bring that legacy character back. Handled well. He slits her throat. He steals her car to drive to fucking California to go get Laurie. Handled great. I thought that was a great way to bring her back. It made her make sense. It gave her a purpose and a reason. This movie, she has no purpose, no reason, and she is killed literally like right out the gate. Like we
So
establish her,
unceremoniously.
she's like the first person that gets the first out of a million to announce Evil Dies Tonight, and then she's just unceremoniously fucking slaughtered.
I don't know, an attempt was made, but it just yeah, she felt very forced into that plot. Like it would have made sense if it was like I understand Tommy and Lindsay having a bond over this and like getting together because they were literally the same age and they're together that
Right.
night like running away from Michael. So that would make sense, but yeah, the shoehorning in of Marion and even Lonnie too, it's like okay. He's like the bully in the first one, right?
Okay.
That's like bullying Tommy.
Right. So it makes no sense to create a backstory for him to have a run in with Michael Myers. And even though I feel like the flashbacks, the new flashbacks that they added, were the like to me they were the only well done things in Halloween Kills, but they were also ruined by other things that I'll get into later.
Mhm.
But so they make a all right. I'm just going to dive into why Lonnie makes no sense and why it pisses me off. Okay, so you make a flashback and you cast a kid that looks similar to the original Lonnie. All right, you get him in an outfit in the exact same outfit, the shirt with the numbers and the stars, the red jacket,
Mhm.
the whole shebang. All right, cool. The last we see Lonnie in the original Halloween, with this movie is taking this flashback takes place literally minutes after Myers was shot and fell off the balcony. Right, the last time that we saw Lonnie in the original Halloween, he's with his two buddies that bully Tommy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The last time we saw him, those three bullies were standing on right outside the Myers house, and they were daring Lonnie to go into the house, while Loomis is doing a stakeout right outside the house. Loomis sees these bullies and like them trying to get Lonnie to go inside. And Loomis crouches down in the fucking in the bushes and goes, "Hey, hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there!" And they take off running, okay, because they were just spooked by a voice coming from the fucking bushes of the old Myers house. But you mean to tell me, okay, here we go. You mean to tell me that they get scared away from the Myers house, they take off running, they somehow the three of them split up. Lonnie is now by himself. He runs into this other group of kids that are bullies to him, named the Mulaney's, who we don't even know who the fuck these kids are, other than there's some ugly ass kids that
Yeah.
fucking pick on a bully. So we got bullies picking on a bully, okay? And the cops come and ridiculously tell that, hey, the kid, you might want to get home. He slaughtered some people, and then he fucking drives off like it's Dukes of Hazzard. Um, so then Lonnie takes off running. Okay, are you with me so far?
Yep.
Lonnie takes off running and he trips. And now we see Michael Myers walking at him. The cops come and they help him up, and Myers has disappeared. And they say, "What was it?" And Lonnie says, "It was the boogeyman." And he takes off running. The camera shifts to find out where he fell was directly in front of the Myers house, where he just was not even
Mm.
10, 15 minutes ago with his friends that he got ran off from.
Yeah.
What? It makes
Yeah,
no
it's
sense.
little stuff like that. So I feel like it's really easy for people to say that that's like too nitpicky, and like I get it, but also it's like it's nitpicky, but it also is like I'm all for suspending disbelief, but like you're making this movie uh, ostensibly for the fans, and you're like trying to like connect it to this other movie that you claim to like love so much and want to like honor and like and make this like solid connection to, and then there's these little lapses in
Logic.
logic that don't
Yeah.
make sense that felt like they just went, no one's gonna remember that, and even if they do, who cares, yada yada yada, it makes sense.
That's my biggest problem with this movie is the fact that yes, everything that I say, everything that I bitch about, 100% you can say I'm nitpicking. I'll agree with that. I understand that. It is nitpicking. But it's nitpicking, it pisses me off because like you said, you as a filmmaker are telling us the fans that this one and 2018 are direct sequels to the original movie, but you're going out of your way to contradict yourself with little nitpicky things. And I'm sorry, but if you're going to try to be faithful to that original film, you need to do your homework even more so. Let's talk about Bracket. before we get to Tom.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it. Yeah,
Um,
the most underutilized legacy character in this whole movie.
I should have talked about him first because I feel like the treatment of his character probably pisses me off the most. I get it. Charles Cyphers is an old man now. Like I don't even know how old that dude is. He's like got to
I
be
was
like
surprised. I didn't know he was still alive,
yeah.
to be
I knew he was
honest.
still alive, but like dude's old. And like he's at least pushing like fucking 80.
Yeah.
Um, but it was like my heart fluttered when I saw him because that's fan service kind of done right when I saw
Yeah.
him, and it was a zoom in on his name tag. And I get why you got to do that. The dude's old. You might not recognize him. So, you got to fucking show who he is. But when he started doing the evil dies tonight chant, like, I'm just like, huh?
Mm.
Like, oh, okay. But the fact that they gave him nothing to do but to waddle around with the mob. And then this is full spoilers. And then at the very end, hold a gun up to Michael Myers and say a line that he said once 40 years ago that there's no way in hell that he would have remembered saying because when he said it to Laurie, and it was before we even knew that Michael Myers was a thing. Everyone's entitled to one good scare. Yeah, I get it. That's your line from the original
Oh,
movie,
God.
but that was the most cringe shit
Ugh.
ever. And
Yeah.
then he immediately gets his fucking throat slit. There's
Yeah.
It was so like of anybody in I'm sorry, of anybody in that movie. I'm including Laurie. Of anybody in that movie, if anybody should have a vendetta against Myers and should have been
Yeah.
leading the
It's
charge, it should have been him.
his
His
daughter
daughter
was
was fucking
slaughtered.
slaughtered. And
Yes.
that you know what? If it was up to me, yeah, fucking sideline Laurie because I'll fucking admit it. I'm sick of Laurie. I'm sick of Jamie Lee Curtis in the Halloween movies. It was cool in H2O. I was kind of like I'm the only one that thought it was kind of neat that they killed her at the beginning of Resurrection.
Yeah.
But I'm done. I get it. It's over with now. The nostalgia has worn off. If you really want to fucking play pool with some legacy characters, have Brackett leading the charge. Have him be the guy that's like rallying the fucking troops and getting people together. How cool would it have been instead of like Tommy and Lindsay and all these guys getting together every fucking year to commemorate shit? Like this shit happens, right? And Brackett is like, "Oh no, this motherfucker killed my daughter. There's no way in hell I'm going to allow that to happen to somebody else's kid." And he hops in like a
Mhm.
fucking pickup truck, like the good old boys did in Halloween 4, and he drives to like the people that he knows survived the first movie. And it's like, "Look, he's back. We've got to stop him to make sure this doesn't happen to somebody else's daughter." You know,
I
like
already love that more than what they did.
it would just make more sense because it makes it more personal and it doesn't make sense. The mob mentality storyline didn't make sense to me because I feel like the mob thing would exist in a real life setting. I could see something like that happening in Luray where I live, but
Mhm.
not to that extent. And if somebody here in Luray killed 3 people one night 40 years ago, there's no way in hell that the town that lives here now, half the population wouldn't even fucking remember that.
Yeah, okay,
Um,
that's a really good point, and I wanna go off on a really quick tangent about
Go,
that
yeah.
because I so okay, so the town where I went to college, my freshman year, there was a triple murder where that was like really scary. Like the guy killed this whole family in the middle of the night that he'd been staying with, and then he like stayed in their house for like days and weeks after, like with just the bodies in the house, and like the cops came over and like tried all to say, and one of the people that he killed was a professor at the college. Like it was
Holy
fucked.
shit.
And so like that that's like that's a Michael Myers situation. Like that's fucked. And
Yeah.
like and do you think anyone even remembers what happened now? Probably not. I mean, granted it's a college town, there's a lot of people coming and going, but like it really felt like even in the time that I was there, the 4 years that I lived there, like within a couple of months after it happened, everyone was like, "Yeah, that was weird," and just kind of moved on. So that's another reason that I just have a hard time understanding that all of Haddonfield would be like whipped up into a frenzy like this over some shit that happened 40 years ago.
Now this is going to
Especially
go
when in 2018 they all acted like they didn't give a fuck and that Lori should just get over it.
right. But that's another thing that goes right back to me being angry about them retconning Halloween 2. If the Michael Myers from Halloween 2 had escaped, I
That's different.
100%
Yeah.
see that town going ape shit.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, this dude butchered like 20 some people. He killed an entire fucking hospital staff.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, if he escapes and comes into town, I can now understand why there would probably be a crazy ass mob after his ass.
Yeah.
But over a guy that killed 3 people, there's no fucking way. But yeah, I hate how they treated Sheriff Brackett in this movie. There was no reason for him. It was literally like a "Hey, look who we got" moment, and you killed him. And he was like like one of the next to last kill in the movie, and he had nothing to. It breaks my heart because like that was like one of the happiest moments of the movie for me was seeing him. You're throwing in these legacy characters for us fans to connect to and to be like, oh, holy shit, man, that's so great that they're back. But you give them nothing to do. But not only do you not give them nothing to do, you give us no emotional beats. There should have been a moment where like Brackett walks into the to her room, you know, her hospital room, and like pulls up a chair beside her hospital bed and sits down and like holds her hand and like they share a tear talking about Annie. Like that was Laurie's best friend. Laurie's best friend and his daughter were killed by this guy that's on the loose right now.
Yep.
And there should have been an emotional moment talking about that and talking about Annie and talking about their friendship and his love for his daughter and how he doesn't want to see that happen to anybody else's kid again. And you know what? He stands up from the chair and looks at Laurie and says, "I promise you one thing, Laurie. No matter what, evil dies tonight." That'd have been the best way to fucking use that
Boom.
line that is used a million times in this fucking movie, but we get none of that from Brackett. We get no emotional moments from Brackett. And to segue right into Tommy, Tommy has like one interaction with Laurie. He literally busts into the room, and it's like a fucking comedy. This is like a Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny moment. He busts into the room, and he's like, "Laurie, you protected me 40 years ago. I'm not going to let anything happen to you," and then runs back out of the room.
With that, it was like that that moment, had it been done better, would have been a good choice. Like, I like the idea. I like that line of like, you protected me 40 years ago. It's my turn. Like, I'm all grown up. I'm going to protect you, Lori, because now you're in the hospital and like, you saved my life, basically. He just runs in, announces it, and then leaves. And it's like, take a take a beat, like just take like have them have just one moment together instead of like forcing the I just felt like I was being like wheeled from scene to scene in
Yeah.
like an out of control like roller coaster.
This movie was, the rickety ass uh, boardwalk beach haunted houses that
Yeah.
you gotta sit in a little car, the rickety ass
Yep.
cart that goes like up the tracks and like you're going through spooky things are coming out at you, but they're really not that spooky. You're just like, oh, that's cool, that's cool. Oh, that's neat, and then the ride's over. That's what this movie was. I felt like
Yeah.
I was on a really shitty, rickety Halloween ride, and as I was going through, things that I remember from the movie are popping out at me, but they're not scary.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I know, the ride is over. Like
It's over and you're like,
there's no
what the
ending. It's
hell?
just the ride's over. Um,
But yeah, I would love to get into Tommy, which I think will segue into what my personal biggest beef with this movie. But let's talk about Tommy.
so I wanted to like Tommy so much because of course, I'm fucking 40 years old, nearly 40 years old. Of course, I'm a fucking fanatic of the Brat Pack movie, so of course I love Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
So I want to love it. I want to love him. I remember the rumors, and it's not a rumor; it's actually fact. They had approached Paul Rudd to play Tommy
Yes.
because Paul Rudd had played Tommy in Halloween 6, but because of Paul Rudd filming Ghostbusters, he couldn't do it. Um, It would have been weird because Halloween 6 doesn't exist in this timeline, but it has still been neat to have him return as Tommy. But they got Anthony Michael Hall. Cool. And if you look at him, he kind of looks like he could have potentially been the same kid. Um, but he did nothing at all for, like, I feel like he was just brooding the entire time. It was so monotone, and there was just I had no emotional attachment to him whatsoever. All of his lines, and I'm talking all of his lines, seemed forced as hell. I had no connection with him, and folks, I'm sorry, you can argue with all you want. He's our main character of this
Oh
movie.
yeah. Oh
He's the
yeah.
main protagonist, and he does diddly shit in this movie. Literally, you like the movie kind of centered around him because he's the one that rallied the troops. He's the one that rallied the mob, and this whole movie was a build up to him being the one that faces off against Myers. And when he does, they fucking just shot that right down the toilet. This movie reminds me of when I was like, like anywhere between 10 to 13 years old, and I'd be staying the night at my friend's house. And like we'd sometimes have like, guy slumber parties where I'd always bring like Friday 13th or Halloween's or
Yeah.
Chainsaw Massacre movies, and we'd stay up all night eating junk food and watching these movies. And we would always like at night when we're supposed to be in bed, like we'd always like all lay around the room, and it'd be like really dim lit with like a nightlight or whatever. And we would like talk about, know what I would do? It'd be so cool if we did this. And then my friends, like, it'd be cool if they did this. That's what this writing room had to have been when they were making these
Oh
movies.
yeah.
It was just a bunch of dude bros in a circle being, man, I knew it'd be really fucking cool. It'd be fucking cool if we did this, man. And they just threw all these ideas in a fucking blender, but no fucking cohesive narrative to tie them all together. It's like they
Yeah.
took cool things and got rid of emotional, good storytelling that you're supposed to have, and they just threw shit at you. And I don't know how many people I've heard the one thing that the reason they think this movie is awesome is because of the kills. And that's, man, that's on you. Like if that's your bag, if you like these movies purely for the kills, awesome, man. I'm glad you had a good time. But I've got to have a little bit more meat to the bones than kills. And
Right.
I know I'm breaking off into a tangent. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to wrap this up. But even the kills piss me off because that's not Michael Myers. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sit here and say that I'm a an expert in all things Michael Myers, but the brutality and the kills that he was dishing out in this movie was not Michael Myers. However, you know who that was? That was Jason. Better yet,
Yeah.
better yet, that was Michael Myers from Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 that 99% of y'all motherfuckers hate. But it's
Mhm.
okay for this movie. This movie, it's okay because it's in the Carpenter timeline and it's new and it has nothing to do with Rob Zombie because we all hate Rob Zombie. But you know what? Since he didn't do this, these brutal fucking kills, they're okay. And you might sit there and be like, "Well, you're contradicting yourself saying that that's not Michael Myers, but you like Rob Zombies." Here, look, that is not this timeline's Michael Myers.
Right. That's a nude Michael Myers.
Right. The Michael Myers from 1978 is not this Michael Myers. You cannot sit here and tell me that that's supposed to be the same fucking guy. It is not the same fucking guy because the Michael Myers in 1978 film would not do the shit that this Michael Myers did. Rob Zombie established in his remake, in his first one, that's how that fucking character is. Therefore, I have no problems with believing that Myers is fucking brutal and does the things that he does. But if you're going to make a movie that is 100% a sequel to the first film, he needs to be acting like the Myers from that first film. He needs to be
Yeah.
stalking people in the shadows. He needs to be slick. He needs to play with his kills, which he did do some in this movie. He would kill somebody and set them up in some kind of like, childlike, playful way. But the brutality and the way he does it, yes, he was brutal in the original Halloween too, but not to this extent. This was
Yeah.
the
It
Terminator.
Yeah, it's definitely jarring going from 1978 to immediately going into 2018 and Kills, which I watched kind of back to back as if they were their own trilogy. And it was like, wow, like Michael got real brutal in the last 40 years. And I think it's this thing that like you said, if the tone and the atmosphere of these two movies had matched the original a bit better, then they wouldn't have needed to supplement the lack of scariness with brutality, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the reason the first one is scary is not because of the kills. The kills are actually pretty like basic. He stabs him,
Bro,
he looks at him,
first movie is
or
almost
he
bloodless.
strangles him. Yeah, there's no gore. Like there's really no gore. There's like a little bit of blood, but like hardly any. And the reason Michael Myers is scary is because, like you said, he's in the shadows, he's silent, he stalks you. He's, that shot of him when, Tommy looks out the window and he's standing under the porch light across the street is
Mhm.
like one of the scariest things ever. Like I got goosebumps just now talking about it because like it's so scary, and it makes him seem more almost supernatural in a way. Like he's a ghost, like he can just appear and disappear whenever he wants and then just show up and stabs you. It's not the killing itself is not the scary part.
Right.
It's
Right.
everything leading up to it. Whereas like this movie, I feel like they wanted to have that comedy in there. They wanted to have it be a little bit more like actiony, and they probably also assumed that audiences at 40 years later are a bit more jaded because of all the other horror movies that have come out. So they were like, okay, we've got to ramp it up. Like it's got to have some crazy kills. So I get that, but it just didn't work as well, and it made it less scary in a way. Like I mean, Michael Myers was still really scary in these movies to me. But it's just like you said, I feel like the brutality felt a little like forced as a means to like not have to write as good or scary of a story.
Right. And you said something that I really loved, and I'm going to piggyback off of that real quick. But I just want to say this. First of all, the reason I like, or I should say love, Rob Zombie's two Halloween movies, as well as the original Halloween trilogy, one, two, and three. It's because they are so much different, and I can like them both for completely different reasons. Because Rob Zombie's Halloween's, Michael's more just like he's a fucking human, like he's
Yeah.
human. He's big, he's strong, and he can do that shit because of that, and I liked that. But we're talking about this Halloween, this timeline, and you hit the nail on the head about something about how he's like a ghost, right? And he stalks in the shadows and he can appear. It's almost like he appears and disappears. And I feel like the biggest difference between the original Halloween and these new ones are in the original Halloween, yes, he's like a supernatural type of entity. He can appear and disappear, and he's like straight up like a ghost. But the difference is the new Michael Myers is not a ghost; he's a monster. And like you
Yeah.
understand, like there's two completely different entities. There is no way like that. One of my biggest problems with 2018, other than them retconning and doing away with Halloween 2, was it didn't make sense to me that he was arrested after Loomis shot him and he fell off the balcony. Because what always scared me and still scares me to this day, look, folks, the original Halloween 1 and especially 2 are the only movies that still to this day creep me the fuck out.
They're creepy.
And what always fucking scared me a lot about the first one was when Myers falls off the balcony after Loomis shoots him 6 times. Was when Loomis looks over and Myers is just gone. The way it works in my brain, I don't picture like Myers sitting up and walking off. Like in my brain, like he fucking vanished.
He's just gone.
He's just gone, and nothing cements that better than the moment when Laurie gets home from school, when she's walking home with Linda and Annie, and they see Myers behind the bushes and
Yeah.
everything. When Laurie gets home and she gets the phone call from Annie chewing, and she thinks it's a prank call or whatever.
Mhm.
When Laurie looks out the window and there's Myers standing by the flowing bed sheets on the clothesline,
Mhm.
he just disappears. He vanishes
Yeah.
into thin air because he's a supernatural force. And I'm sorry, you can't arrest a supernatural force. And like
Yeah.
it just bugged me that in 2018, like he's no longer that that character. Now he's like this brutal monster. He went from like a supernatural an unknown supernatural, almost ghost-like character, to now he's just like Frankenstein's monster, and
Yeah.
it's just not right. And I'm sorry,
The,
you're not making a direct sequel to John Carpenter's classic. You're making a movie that you think is cool, and
yeah, because
you're giving it a coat of paint to try to pass it off as something that it's not.
yes, and to like that was one of the weirdest things going from 78 immediately into 18 was all of a sudden, oh, and yada yada yada, he got arrested that night, but you didn't see it, and we're not going to actually show it until the second movie. And it's, I feel like it would have been so much scary. Like, imagine, like, he disappears and then literally no one saw him again for 40 years. Now imagine you're Laurie Strode. Hell yeah, you're gonna fucking rig your house up and like be constantly on guard. Like, he could just show up. He's a ghost. He
Yep,
disappeared. They never found him. The trail went dead. The cops gave up
yep,
and the whole town just moved on. But he's always just kind of been in the back of, like, he could come back at any moment, and
yep.
he chose this night 40 years later to come back.
Why, we
That's
don't know,
terrifying.
and we don't
Maybe
know why.
we don't know, like, has he been living out in the wilderness? Is he really just a ghost that like can appear and disappear? Like, who knows? That is so much scarier than like yada yada yada, they arrested him and now they're just keeping him in this insane asylum where they just like chain him up outside with a bunch of people and they just stand there.
The escape of Myers in 2018 was literally just a remake of his escape from Halloween 4. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, like, I'm so sick of Myers escaping when he is an evil force of nature that should not be able to be contained. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
if you're telling me that you arrested a 6-year-old kid and put him in a fucking sanitarium, and he sat and stared at a wall for, whatever, 15 years, and never fucking spoke a word, and never did anything but stare at a wall or stare out a window, and he waited until one night to escape. And here's the thing: not only did he wait till one night to escape, he waited one night where he knew for a fact he was going to get out. I don't feel like you should keep fucking capturing that character,
Yeah,
because
that's
you're
just like a
ruining the
weird.
mystique of that. And that's another reason why I love Halloween 2, is because it carried on that mystique and made it. And again, this is just personal. This is a personal thing. I think it's scarier, that the brother and sister relationship, because now, like, you don't know what he is, you don't know why he is. You just
Right.
know that he is, and that he's not going to stop until he does what he does. And I love that Halloween 2, picked up moments after Halloween 1. And one of my favorite fucking things was at the very opening of Halloween 2, was a recap, him getting shot off the balcony, hitting the ground. When Loomis comes out and he pats the ground and holds up his hand and sees blood on his hands, and the neighbor comes out and says, "What's going on out here?" Loomis is fucking irate and scared. He's like, "Call the police, tell the sheriff I shot him." And like the neighbor's like, "Shot who?" And then Loomis says, "Tell him he's still on the loose." And the neighbor's like, "Is this some kind of Halloween prank? I've been trick or treated to death tonight." Loomis says, "You don't know what death is." And he takes off running, and the music hits. My
It's so
God,
good.
that is fucking frightening, because this dude just vanished, but the dude is bleeding, and he
He
vanished,
bleeds, but
and
but
he's
something,
still
he's not
going.
human.
And the next time we see him, he's stalking a fucking alleyway, and he's still bleeding because he breaks in to Harold and what's her name's house, and he doesn't kill them. He walks in, he stands behind the old woman. Harold is in a recliner, passed out, but it breaks into a TV news report about what's happening. Myers is standing directly behind her, watching the TV to see what they're saying about him. His blood covered hand reaches down, takes her knife, and just dips back out of the house. She
So
turns around and finds a puddle of blood where his hand was that took her knife, and she fucking screams. Terrifying, because this motherfucker, he doesn't care what he does. If that had been the Michael Myers from Halloween Kills, He'd have gone in there, he'd have fucking ripped her head off, took the knife, and then buried it into Sleeping Harold's fucking cranium, you know? And like,
Yeah. But
no,
that something about that is scarier. The fact that the
yes,
idea of like standing like you're standing there, you're watching the news, you're seeing this awful stuff happen, and then you turn around, you didn't even know somebody was in your house and there's just a puddle of blood and a knife gone. And you're like, "What the fuck
that
just
is
happened?" That's
terrifying.
way that's way scarier. And so
Oh,
I think I'm about ready to get into the thing that just like kind of ruined kills for me and like
yeah,
took
I
me
want to
out
know
of
what it
it.
is because for people that don't know, Katie's my best friend, but we don't like talk all the time, and we've been
Yeah.
saving to record this, especially so we could just unleash. But
Yeah.
the one thing that Katie told me was she didn't mind the movie up to a certain point, and then it just killed it for her. And I don't know what that is, so I can't wait to hear this.
Okay, so and I feel like I've heard this sentiment echoed from a few other people who didn't like the movie, but basically, so I'm in the theater and I'm having a great time. Like I'm, honestly, some of the nitpicky things we're getting into weren't bugging me at the moment. I'm just stoked to be seeing a Michael Myers movie on the big screen. And then they start getting into like the angry mob stuff and I'm like, okay, like I don't love that, but that's fine. Like I can see I guess I can see it. You're in the moment. You're not having a whole lot of time to like super critically think about it. So you're just like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm on board. Like the town's getting pissed off, and they're all getting in there. It was it was the whole segue, like when they with the other inmate
Penguin,
that they attack, and then he ends up dying. So basically that just ruined it for me. It
yeah,
just didn't make any fucking sense. It makes no fucking sense. That dude's face has been blasted all over the news all night long. Tommy saw it himself, even as he's going, "Oh, it's definitely Michael. Like Michael's the one killing people right now." Like after like so, and I can understand maybe not everybody has seen the news report, but the idea that this like kind of large, short, hunched over old man with stringy long hair wearing inmates' clothes wanders into a hospital, and then all these fucking people just go, "That's definitely the 6 foot tall killing machine that's been tearing through our town." And they just spend like 10 minutes doing this whole long, drawn out sequence where they're chasing this guy through the hospital.
I thought for sure there was going to be
And
Benny Hill music playing as they were chasing him up the stairs.
seriously, yeah. And then, he jumps off the roof and he kills himself and it's so, gross and
Tragic.
violent. And then everyone kind of just goes, "Oh man, like look what Michael Myers is doing to us. Like we're all monsters. None of us are truly innocent." Oh, this whole angry mob thing, I guess it really isn't a good idea. Sometimes innocent people get hurt by mobs. And then everybody just fucking goes home except for like 10 people that stay with Tommy. So it just felt like a very unnecessary departure that not only was unnecessary but didn't make any fucking sense because I refuse to believe that the first people that saw that this old man assumed that was Michael Myers. And I refuse to believe that doctors and nurses would be shoving Lori and shoving like women and children out of the way to like chase after this person that they're trying to kill with vigilante justice. It just felt so out of left field. It didn't fit in with the rest of the movie. And then they tried to like yada 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 have like a point to it.
The fact that they gave Brackett the line to be like, now he's turning us into monsters. I'm like, oh
Like,
no,
and he wouldn't say like what the fuck. It's just
no.
no, it
First
doesn't
of
make
all,
any
Brackett
sense.
wouldn't be probably a part of that. But here's my problem with the inmate. Okay, this goes back to the news report at the bar, and this is like our huge problem. You mean to tell me that in 40 years that this famous Halloween killer has been locked up, we have no pictures of him? Why why did the news report say, here's Dan DeVito's penguin from Batman Returns who escaped? And
But
here's
we
a
got
picture of
no
him.
info on Michael
And
Myers.
Michael Myers and a picture of that fucking bald ass gray dude with his one eye. Like that would have been enough to get the mob fucking, holy shit, it's Michael Myers. Holy shit. There he is without his mask. Holy shit, we know what he looks like. It's definitely not the penguin. get the fuck out of here. They did nothing but write themselves in the corner and then just fucking be like, oh well, that just because we established that don't mean it fucking matters. I'm gonna finish up on this because we're talking about the hospital scene and stuff like that. There is no hospital in fucking history. There is no hospital before, during, or after this life. There is a morgue on the same fucking level
oh my
as as,
god.
as regular
With the
hospital room,
fucking
let
blinds
alone that
open
has
with
a
just a
window that you
naked
can just
corpse.
look in and
Oh my
naked dead
god.
bodies. What?
Oh my god. What is that? What is that? That's the kind of shit that makes my brain melt, that I'm just like, that does that not did that not take anyone else out? Am I just fucking insane? Because it makes no sense.
None.
Not only does it make
None.
no sense that that would exist, they've got a just fully nude man just splayed out on this table
A
for
headless
everyone to
arcane with his
see.
dong out. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And then of all places to stop and stare like and ponder things, Allison's gonna go up to that fucking window. Like, why isn't it like, I thought it was gonna be the room where they keep the newborns, and it's just so that they can have a very forced brief scene later where that one kid's mom runs by who's been looking for him, the kid from the first movie, and then she sees him and is like, oh no. Meanwhile, nobody else gives a fuck that that kid died.
No.
Literally no one else. Not his
Fuck
best,
Oscar.
not two of his best friends. Nobody cares. Not even the boyfriend that found his body and like saw it with his own eyes. No one gives a shit. They're just ready to go like fight Michael.
You know what? Not only that, and this goes into what I said earlier about no emotion in this movie. It's like nobody there's no time to breathe and have emotional moments. And what makes horror movies like this work is emotional beats. Like, and Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, it has one of the most gut wrenching emotional scenes of any slasher movie that I've ever seen. And every time I watch it, it gets me, dude. And a lot of it has to go do with the actor himself, Brad Dourif,
Oh, he's
Sheriff
amazing.
Brackett in zombies films. But when he finds Annie's body
Oh,
in Halloween 2, oh my god, it's fucking gut wrenching. Like, and then it shows the two deputies like literally like one on each arm, like dragging him out, his feet dragging behind him because he is a crumpled man who just lost
distraught.
his daughter. It is, dude. It is heartbreaking. It's, to me, it's the most heartbreaking scene of any horror film, and one of the reasons why I love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. We get none of that, and not only Halloween Kills, but we don't get none of that in 2018.
Like the unfocused nature is kind of, I think, how some of those emotional beats get lost, because I don't know who I'm with. Like, I like your take that the protagonist of this movie is possibly Tommy Doyle. Like, I do like that. It does feel like, especially with how he kind of starts the movie and then is kind of one of the last people that Michael kills. Like, that makes sense, but like, we just don't get enough time with anybody, and that was a big complaint with 2018, is that, it feels like, okay, like, it's a new generation. Her Laurie's daughter has grown up and is now jaded to this whole Michael thing because she's been forced to like deal with Laurie's trauma and was taken away by Child Protective Services, and had to go through all this rigorous training and shit. Now she's got a daughter, so we've got Laurie's granddaughter, and that's when I felt the movie was the strongest in some ways, was when it was focused on Allison and her friends. And I was like, okay, so it's a new generation. We've got a new final girl, and it's Allison. It's Laurie's granddaughter. And we are going to connect it back to Laurie and Karen. And they're all got like the three generations of women are all going to like play a part here. But really, I feel like the focus should have been Allison. She should have been our
Oh,
anchor
absolutely.
to this movie, to both of these movies, but she's not. She's just thrown around and put into various scenes. They start out the movie like she's going to be our main focus, but then they just start going all over the place, and it gets even worse in Kills because it really just is all over the place. And I don't even think Allison has like nothing to fucking do until the very, very end, because there's no anchor to this movie. I have no emotional anchor either. So none of this shit matters to me because it is just way too zoomed out. It's difficult, like on a psychological level, it is just like hard for humans to care about things on a macro level in a deep emotional way.
Yep.
You have to zoom in, and you have to give me one or two, or even a small ensemble of people to like really anchor to and like feel connected to, like I'm with them through this whole movie. But I don't get that. Instead, it's this like bird's eye view of what happens to this town because of things that Michael Myers did. But it's
Right.
like I don't feel anything from that. It just
Right.
doesn't. It just feels hollow to me.
Um, listening to you and it all running around in my head. The one thing that I hate hearing the most, like when somebody was like yelling at me for hating this movie. Uh, well, it's just a middle chapter. It's just the second part of the story. It's just leading up to the third. I'm sorry. Maybe I missed that chapter in the filmmaking book. That if you're making a second movie in a trilogy, you don't have to fucking make a good story. But I'm sorry, if you're making a movie, you need to have a beginning, middle, and end. And this movie
Agreed.
and this movie was nothing but a middle. There was,
Yes,
what I'm
it was
saying, like,
middle the whole movie.
yeah, and there was just no narrative. And you can tell me that this is just the second part of a trilogy all you want to. It needed to be a movie.
Yeah, they have to be able to stand, like, I understand that you need the prerequisite of seeing the first one to fully understand what's going on in the second one. That makes sense. Like, I'm not saying that every sequel should be totally standalone so that you can just go in not knowing anything and still be able to follow it. But I agree. Like, these movies should be able to stand out on their own.
Yeah.
Like, if I want to watch Scream 2, I can just fucking watch Scream 2
Right.
and
Yeah.
I get a fully complete story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And yes, there's things from the first movie that are set up that I would enjoy more and understand more had I watched it. But I'm not left just feeling like I watched the second act of a play
Right.
with
Right.
no resolution.
You should
So
not.
yeah,
You should not have to watch a movie uh, that you need to watch another one to be fulfilled.
yeah,
Um,
like it's definitely got middle child syndrome, like for
oh,
sure.
dude, it's terrible. It's like it's literally a movie that's just a dude killing for 2 hours and
Yeah,
people acting like fucking idiots, and there's no payoff to anything. And the one thing that should have been a payoff, they literally pissed away in the last like fucking minute of the movie. Um,
yeah, and I
I
think
just don't get
like
it.
that's like, and the thing, a lot of like rebuttals I've also seen online are just people being like, what did what are you expecting, some like Oscar worthy like coherent
Yeah.
masterpiece from a slasher? And I'm like, no. But the thing about slashers, if you actually watch and enjoy slashers, are that the best slashers have like have something more to them than just people getting murdered in creative ways. Like, yes, I understand that on a surface level, that's what a slasher is. Like, you're here to see people get fucked up in various ways. And especially like back in the day, some of those movies really are like, okay, let's put a bunch of hot people in a situation together and just watch them all get fucking murdered. Won't
Yeah.
that be a great time? But sometimes even those movies have something more to them that actually makes you give a shit and makes it like interesting, or connects you to these characters in some way. But yeah, this was just like, let's watch Michael go from house to house and do arts and play arts and crafts with everyone's bodies.
My thing is, and again, I can't speak for everyone. It's just personal. But the reason I love slasher films, especially ones like Halloween and Friday the 13th, and it's just personal. Like this is how I've always viewed the movies and what I love about them. But when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to watch the next whatever Friday the 13th or whatever, because these are the things that I was always excited about: the kills, and how are they going to kill the monster this time?
Yeah.
And in the next one, how is that monster going to come back? And it's not only just slasher genres. That's also why I really love monster movies. like the Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman movies, Universal, and the Hammer. It's because, especially the Hammer Dracula movies, is I couldn't like one of my favorite things was I couldn't wait to see how are they going to kill Dracula in this one,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the next one, how are they going to resurrect Dracula in this one? Because and the last one, they shot the ice that he was standing on, and he fell through the ice, and running water kills Dracula. So the water was running under the ice, and it trapped him. Fucking fantastic! That's a great way to
That's
kill the
great.
monster. So in the next one, the fucking like the ice thawed out and the water bed like dried up, and Dracula came back. Okay, great. And then he got struck by lightning and like was set on fire because fire kills vampires. So in the next one, like some bats flew in and dripped blood on the ashes, and he came back. I always loved those types of things. Like in the Universal monster films, in Son of Frankenstein, he gets kicked into the sulfur pit, right? Fucking wicked death, dude. So in Ghost of Frankenstein, the sulfur pit is dried up, and an explosion happens that breaks open the solid sulfur. So the monster comes out because he was preserved
Right.
by the hard. I loved shit like that as a kid, and the Michael Myers and Jason movies were no different. I loved. Yes, I always love seeing the antagonists do their work, do their thing, but I
Right.
always want to see them get theirs in the end because that's how it's a movie. It's what's supposed to happen. And like Halloween 4 and 5 are not great Halloween movies. I've established that they're not, but they felt like Halloween movies. And guess what? Hated them or not, they had a fucking storyline. But I always loved like at the end of Halloween 4, Halloween 5 picks up right where that one left off because they vanquished the evil. Now let's see how that evil is coming back. And
Right.
even though it was like a lame attempt of bringing him back, it was still that way. This movie pissed me off so bad because the evil wasn't vanquished. This movie was a complete setup for the next movie. And I understand,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is the second part of a story, but no, this movie needed a beginning, middle, and it needed an end. I don't care
Yeah.
who you are, what you think. This movie needed a legit end.
I
And
agree.
I know you're doing a third one. I understand that. We've all known that for 2 years now that there's going to be a Halloween ends, but at least end your second chapter
Yeah.
before you start
Like
your
they
next
could
one.
have it would have been a lot stronger if they had ended with just like the classic they thought they killed him and then his body disappears and they're like shit, like okay, I guess he's still out. Like
I'm not trying to say that I know better than anyone, okay? I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say I'm an expert. I'm not trying to say that I could make a better movie. I personally feel like I could, but it's just my personal feelings. But my girlfriend asked me the other day because I've been ranting about this movie for weeks. She said, "How would you have done it? How would you have ended this movie to lead up into the next one?" I'll go ahead and tell you right now. And you know what? Half of you probably be like, "That's stupid." The other half might like it. That's how it is. This is my personal. And Katie, after I'm done telling you, I want to hear what you would have done. But
yeah.
I felt the mob mentality thing I hated. But I hated everybody in the hospital. I hated the
Yeah.
fucking group of 100 people. I did like the small mob. I didn't
Yes.
mind Tommy and Lindsay and Brackett. The legacy characters. I kind of liked that. It just needed to be handled a lot better. But uh, Karen sets up Myers, steals his mask. She runs, all right, runs away, and he chases after her to get his mask. She drops it in the middle of the road. He leans over to pick it up. She does her same line from the last movie of "Gotcha," and all these headlights turn on, and there's the mob surrounding Myers. And I don't know if you felt the same way I did, but Myers actually looked a little bit fucking scared, and I liked
Yeah,
that.
I got the vibe of like, oh, he feels like he's not really sure what he's gonna do
Right.
right now for a moment.
And I actually like I was fist pumping in my seat in the theater when they were beating the shit out of him and
Hell
shooting
yeah.
him because like there was this one shot where he like swings his knife and the person and he misses and then the next person just fucking knocks him upside the head and like James Jude's Courtney's like fucking body language, like it looked like Myers was like fuck shit fuck like as he's getting
Yeah,
hit,
yeah.
and I'm like I actually was digging it because I was like yes, He's getting what he deserves. And when they finally take him down, this is what I would have done. You could even keep in the cringy line if you wanted to of Brackett coming up with the gun and saying everyone's entitled to one good scare. But you know what would have happened? He would have pulled the fucking trigger. And
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't want to shoot, if you wanted to like leave his head intact, that's fine. Shoot him in the fucking like heart or something. But go for that fucking actual kill shot, right? He's dead. They lean over, they check his pulse. There is no pulse. They pronounce him dead. The fucking ambulance rolls up. They put his ass, zip him up in a body bag, put him on a stretcher, put him in an ambulance. But where does that ambulance go? It goes to
The
Vanderbilt
hospital.
Memorial Hospital. Who's in the hospital?
Mm-hmm.
Laurie. All right, we're so hell bent on him not being after Laurie, but we got to have the final showdown between those two, right?
Yeah.
What better way? What better way? I'm sorry, I hit my microphone because I'm getting so excited. What better way to get those two back together without him going after her than they just transport his dead body to the morgue, and the last shot of the movie can literally just be like a zoom in of his finger, and we see just the slightest little twitch, and smash cut to black. Famous Halloween theme song hits the end,
Yeah.
and then the next one you can literally pick up right from that moment. If he disappears from the morgue that we see through the window, we look through the window and his body's not on a slab. And you don't have to pull a Halloween 2. You don't have to keep it in the hospital. But now those two that you're trying to keep together to a final fight, now we got them at least in the same vicinity. That's how
Right.
I would have fucking done it. That way you've actually got an end and you feel fulfilled that you got an ending to an actual movie, but you still know that there's going to be another one.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. I feel like I would have done something similar but with some slight changes because I've also been thinking about this. So I agree. I like the small mob with the legacy characters and maybe a few other just like extras from the town getting together and riding around and trying to find Michael. I
Mhm,
would have cut out all that bullshit at the hospital with the huge mob and the other escaped inmate and all that shit. Like that would have just we've just been cut. So the movie, we're kind of seeing Tommy and this group of people go around from place to place trying to find Michael, but maybe every time, maybe they just keep getting there too late. Like they're just missing him every time.
mhm.
And so that we're a little bit more focused there. And then, similar scene, Karen takes the mask, runs away, leads him up. The headlight, all that happens the same where they beat him to a pulp. She gets that final stab, all that shit. That was great. So they think he's dead, and Karen goes back to the house. Again, similar to what actually happened in the movie and similar to what you said. Karen goes back to the house. Oh, it's over. He's dead. Okay, great. Two things are happening at the same time. She's up at the window because remember earlier they kept touching on this like he used to just stare out the window and what was he staring at? Like, oh, what could he have been looking at?
Mhm.
And in the Halloween Kills, they did some dumb shit where they tried to be like, maybe he was looking at himself, like he was looking within. What the fuck? That's not scary. What does that mean?
Right.
Okay, so anyway, what was he looking at? They established this whole like window connection. So then two things are happening at the same time. Tommy is with the dead body of Michael in the street. Maybe some of the other vigilantes have kind of stepped away and gone back to their car, and he's not ready to he's actually maybe a little salty that he didn't get the killing blow, that it was Karen, because he's still got all this anger, pent up in him. So I think there's still this moment where he maybe tries to go in and get just another hit swing of the bat or just some dumb shit of like getting in his face and telling him everything he's always wanted to say to him. And Michael wakes up and kills Tommy. And there's the same moment, which I actually liked. I liked the idea of like Tommy staring into thinking that he's this huge badass and he's going to take down Michael Myers, but he has to stare into the eyes of the boogeyman, this thing that's haunted him for 40 years and it's killing him. Like the worst possible scariest thing you could think of is actually happening. At the same time, Karen is like looking out the window at the Myers house and thinking about that conversation or whatever, that they're kind of like referencing that conversation of like, what was he looking out at the window? And from the window of that house, somehow she can see the hospital. She can see like the lights of the hospital or maybe the sign for it. I don't really know the geography of this town, but I like the idea of her kind of seeing the hospital and getting this like spidey sense that Michael is not really dead and like knowing that he's going to the hospital next. And it's this idea, so like I like the idea of maybe having him come back for like one more kill at the end with Tommy, but then like disappearing, and then it ending on the note of like, oh shit, he's going to the hospital like where Lori is, and
Right.
going from there. So it's kind of, I think I like yours a little bit better, but it's the similar vibe of like, let's get him back to the hospital because that makes the most sense, and like let's actually end this movie instead of just like having it end on a gotcha cliffhanger that I'm sure, like, again, spoilers and all, like just having him like quote unquote kill Karen in the last 5 seconds in the movie when I have a strong suspicion that the beginning of the next movie is going to be that she's not actually dead but just severely injured.
That's what I was thinking
Like,
too.
it's the way that they killed her and how we don't really see her
Mhm.
dead body or anybody finding it is like, I don't know. And I mean, I guess we'll see. We'll see what they do. I'm
Look,
going to keep an open mind. You know, I'm curious to see how they're going to end this whole thing, but it just feels like a bit of, it feels like a lot of stuff in the second movie didn't need to happen, and they could have just made two movies, and the second movie would be him just coming to the hospital to have a final showdown with Lori,
yeah.
and that's the movie.
Well, I mean, they had to fucking get as much money out of this as possible. That's what the name of the
I
game
guess
is.
so.
I don't think Karen's dead either, especially since if Hawkins can take a fucking blade to the jugular
To
and
the
get
neck.
stabbed in his chest 3 times and ran over by a vehicle, but then be fucking hunky dory in Halloween Kills, I think Karen's got a good chance.
Yeah, because if you watch, because when I watched it the second time, I think most of her wounds are defensive wounds because she has her arms and hands up while he's stabbing at her. Like I think he gets her one time in the back or in the side or something, but I think most of her wounds were like arm hand wounds. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what they do. Maybe she is just fucking dead, and that's just how they are gonna do it. But to me, it feels like
Feels cheap.
an unnecessary cliffhanger ending when I have a strong suspicion that it's not even going to matter because she's just going to be fine. So it's like a weird, it's like, what do you think I'm going to be like, oh my God, is she going to make it? Like, I don't care.
I don't
Like,
fucking care. Yeah, going back on the mob surrounding Myers and beating the shit out of him. Like I said, I was fist pumping. But when he just willy nilly just gets back up and slaughters them with fucking pure ease, my mind literally fucking popped. Like the top of my head blew off because I'm just like, all right, so this guy 10 minutes ago couldn't slaughter everybody, but after they beat the fuck out of him, he gets back up. He's like, all right, you know what, I got this. You're telling me that this guy that just took on an entire mob with chains and baseball bats and guns, he slaughtered all of them with ease, but he was easily arrested in 1978 by surrounding cops? Fuck it. Before we jump into this, I want to say one last thing. One legacy character that we didn't touch upon. We talked about her just like a little bit, but Lindsay Wallace. Uh,
yeah,
Hands down, my favorite character of the entire movie.
she was great.
Uh,
She
she
was great.
she was great. Her entire scene, uh, her not the people she was with, her
Yeah,
entire scene of him chasing her and her hiding,
terrifying.
was the best and most suspenseful and most Halloween
Yeah,
feeling moment of the entire movie.
that was
Uh,
the strongest part of the movie for
Strongest
sure.
by far, and she survived. She's in the hospital now too, so I'm sure she'll get fucking killed within 10 seconds or something in the next one. Um, but I just want to say, now that I've got that out of line and that we both loved Lindsay, before we move on to the thing that I want to talk about, every person that got killed in this movie fucking deserved it. This town is full of the
The
dumbest
dumbest people
fucking
alive.
people ever committed to film. I have never in my entire life this movie. I'm going to start with one thing that just baffles me to no extent is the nurse and the doctor. The
Oh,
that are
yeah.
dressed up as
Yeah.
nurses. How how did she fall out of the vehicle with a gun? She falls out of the vehicle and hits the ground, so she's at ground level. Meanwhile, Myers is in the vehicle stabbing the shit out of Nurse Mary and making her husband's head a shish kebab. But the next moment we see her, she is now like 10 feet, like probably more than that, probably like 15 feet away from the vehicle, walking towards it, opening fire, shooting at Myers. That makes no sense. She just fell out of the vehicle, but now it's like she fell out of a vehicle that was like parked somewhere else. Lindsay was stuffing a pillowcase full of bricks for fucking 10 minutes before she ran up and did anything. It's like all these people stood by and watched their friends and loved ones get killed before they decided to swoop in to do
And try to
anything about
fucking
it.
do anything.
It
Yeah. So
oh,
this girl, I hated that girl's death scene too because I thought it was really cheap and unnecessarily slapstick. I was just like, that was one of the many moments where I was like, is this a comedy? Are they trying to, am I supposed to find that funny? Because the idea, first of all, if I don't know how gun savvy like any of our listeners are, but she's holding a fucking 50 cal, and there are videos online where like or stories also, you can like break your fucking wrist
yeah,
shooting one of those
yeah.
things because they're huge. Like the kickback on them is I've never shot a 50 cal. Obviously my wrist would shatter. Like I do not have strong wrist. But like the idea, and don't get me wrong, they do have a quick line where they establish, she says something like, I better hold this, I've shot one of these before, and I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. But like the fact that she like goes to shoot at Michael and then he just opens the door and it just hits the gun and turns it onto herself and she shoots herself, like the theater laughed. It's like
Oh yeah,
hilarious.
my
It's
theater erupted
objectively
in laughter.
funny, but it's like, but why, like why is that, like I feel like it would have been much, and again we're getting into like, well, what would I have done versus like what the filmmakers just did, but really I feel like that scene would have worked so much better if she had like gone to shoot and she missed and she like hurt herself with the kickback and she drops the gun and now she's injured and doesn't have a weapon, and then Michael Myers just kills her. Like that to me is much better than this like slapstick like moment out of nowhere where she just turns the gun on herself and shoots. Like it, I did not like that at all.
All right, 100%. Like I said, Lindsay was the only good thing about that entire scene.
Yeah.
But this segues right into uh, the elephant and the thing that I've been joking about now for 2 weeks, I guess. Uh, Me and my girlfriend call each other this now. I call her Big John. She calls me Little John. And
So
it segues
yeah.
right into the slapstick shit. Look, dude, I'm not trying to sit here and give a fucking like film lessons. All right, I'm not an expert filmmaker. I make fun, shitty movies, whatever. I will sit here and tell you though that what makes a horror comedy work is because it's a horror comedy. Yes, you can inject funny moments in horror movies and make them work, but not when you've already established a tone and then you break that tone. It's so jarring. Like,
Again and again.
you just had this motherfucker like emerge from a burning house and he's carrying a fireman's pick and he demolishes these motherfuckers. Which this goes right back to these motherfuckers deserve it. The fucking idiot firefighter who's standing there with the hose, who's just standing there.
Just standing there. They all just stand there and wait to get fucking
Oh my
killed.
god. While everybody like it was cheering and loving that moment, I was literally like, what are these fuckers doing? Anyway, back to what I'm trying to say. But you're trying to establish like Myers is this fucking like killing machine. He's this has been used before, but he's like the shark in Jaws, right? you can't go from fucking heavy ass dark tone of murder machine to like people like in the hospital like hurt and real life situations going on to fucking Big John Little John. You know what I'm saying? You can't,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense because you haven't established that that's what this movie is.
Right. And like let me just say real quick before we get too into it, like I really liked the characters of Big John and Little John. I thought that was some of the like I really enjoyed that whole sequence, but I agree like as a standalone thing, like if there was just like a Halloween spin-off short film about this like gay couple living in the old Myers house that call each other Big John and Little John and like they had that whole thing and then they get killed by Michael Myers, like that would be fine, but I agree. Like you can't go from this fucking brutal scene where he just slaughters this old married couple in front of each other and they're like called the husband's like screaming for his wife as she's just standing there bleeding out and he's bleeding out. Like that was rough, like that was really intense. And then you're gonna go to a scene where it's basically a Danny McBride self-insert and his boyfriend just being idiots like
I I with a passion hate it, the Big John Little John stuff. That I've got numerous problems with it, and I'm gonna get one of them out right now. Every movie that has a gay couple does not treat them like real life gay people, and it
yeah,
pisses me off because I have so many gay friends that are just like you and I, and the only difference
yep,
is they just don't they like the different sex than we do,
yeah.
and they don't have like it. I don't know if this makes sense, but I'm just so sick of the stereotypical bullshit. Can we start treating gay people in movies just as regular people?
They tend to get treated like they're obviously like the comic relief.
Hmm.
They
And they've got to
get
be over the
their
top flamboyant.
they have to be either over the top flamboyant or just like completely sexless, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
they're not allowed to have chemistry with each other.
Right.
We're not allowed to see them kiss. Meanwhile, we can watch straight couples like fuck and kiss and talk about having sex and all this stuff over and over and over. But we don't even get to see this gay couple like show affection to each other really, except for one part where the guy puts his hand on the other guy's back and says like, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey." And it's like I agree. It's like it gets treated, they're almost like disposable in a
Oh,
way.
100% disposable. I remember like because I take my mom to every new Halloween movie that comes out. I don't know if you've met my mom, so you know how she is.
Yeah.
So she's always got some fun commentary about this stuff. And she said something about the about the gay couple, and I told my mom, I said, "Mom, that was not a gay couple. That was a fucking parody of a gay couple."
Yeah.
And it's another reason why like the stupid ass comedy does not work because it was played for laughs. I'm sorry, but why couldn't a gay couple be? If you want to focus on a gay couple, why couldn't they have been a gay couple a part of the mob and been treated serious? But no,
Yeah.
we've got to treat Big John and Little John as a parent, full on jokes. These motherfuckers deserved getting killed probably more than almost anybody in this movie. They are living in the Myers house, and on Halloween night, they know that somebody has just come into their house and left a bloody handprint on their wall,
Mhm.
and they hear a noise upstairs. And instead of literally getting the fuck out of Dodge,
Yep.
and they proceed to go up the stairs to hunt
Yeah.
what is in their house.
It's like they're still treating, and I mean granted, it sounds like they weren't watching the news that night, so like they don't know that Michael Myers is out, but I also don't understand, you see a bloody handprint on your wall and you're still assuming that it's like kids or that it's like petty burglary. I mean, even if it is, it's like I can't think of a single scenario where you wouldn't just leave. Like you wouldn't just go out of the house, you wouldn't call 911. Like, and again, I know it's like if characters made the right decisions, then most horror movies wouldn't exist. But it is not in a believable way.
No,
And like there, and I don't feel. I didn't feel anything like when Big John finds little, or which I don't know who's who. When the one guy finds the
Little
other
John
guy's body.
is Stewart from Mad TV.
Okay, yeah. So when Little John finds Big John, it didn't feel, it felt like nothing. Like it didn't feel, whereas like that other old couple that they showed with the drone and it was super brutal, it was like I felt that. Like I felt how fucked
Yours
up
was good.
and like sad that
Drone
would
shit
be,
made no
like
sense,
to
but yeah.
yeah.
And when Little John finds his lover dead on the floor, or and then finds Myers standing at the window, dude, it
You've come
killed
home
me when he was like, Michael, and Michael turns around, looks at him, and he goes, "You came home," and he stands perfectly still as Myers
and just waits to be killed.
walks towards him, and then it cuts to outside, and we hear the scream. Why?
I did
Why
not
did he
like that.
stand
No.
there and like, was he like, "Well, my lover's dead, might as well just fucking get it over with and
I
die too?"
guess, but I didn't get any sense of anything
No.
out of that because they were just put in there to die and to crack some jokes on the way out.
It makes
That was literally what they were
it
there
just made
for.
no sense. It was so bad. The only like, I don't even know, like, because we say this all the time, and I especially say it on our other Video Express shows. Um, Always set up and pay off.
Yeah.
And I feel like their only purpose was to set up the Myers house, but there's other ways of going around setting it up. Like, like we didn't
Yeah.
the story that they chose to tell with this Myers house was not the way to fucking go and not the characters to use. But I can say that about this entire movie. But piggybacking off of setting up and payoff, because I'm a huge advocate for that. What would you're talking about the couple that gets killed, the lady that gets the light tube through her throat, and then her husband that gets. I did like their deaths because it gave a little bit of a reason. The geography was laid out that they lived close to Laurie because they were talking about they could smell the smoke and the fire,
Right.
so it made sense for Myers to go to their house, and it established what he was doing was he broke into their house and went into their bathroom to bandage up his fucked up hand.
Yeah.
So that was cool. That made sense, man. I was all for that. And then he kills them, but the thing that had me kind of scratching my head, and this is just a filmmaker in me, was the drone shit. Um, like usually when you have a character doing something, something, and not only just doing something, but doing something in particular. Usually, it's because you're setting up something that's going to pay off later.
Right.
So I don't understand the drone. Like, what what was that
The
setting up?
it was a setup for a scare that wasn't that scary. Like the setup of the drone was just so that it could fly
So he
into
could
the
so he could
bathroom
throw it
and
back
then
at him.
get thrown back out. Yeah, because that's like the first sign that something is wrong. It was like,
Right,
"Wait, what
right.
the
But you
fuck's
mean
in the
tell me like that?
bathroom?"
That's why you chose, of all
It
the things
seems
in the
like
world
it.
that you could have done to set that scare up, or to set up the Myers in your house, they
You're just
chose
like, "They're playing with a
they
drone."
chose playing with a drone. It just makes it. I'm sorry. It's just it's me being overcritical. I understand. I do understand. I do get it that I'm nitpicky, but it's just, again, it's the filmmaker in me that you usually do stuff like that because you're setting up something. And
Yeah.
if the only payoff is him throwing the drone back to set up a scare, it feels lifeless. Um,
Yeah.
it just made no sense. Now, another thing that I really did like about them was when she's laying there bleeding out and she's helplessly watching Myers try out the different knives in her
Yeah.
husband's back. I will 100% applaud them for that. Um, However, I think it's the only kills that I even remotely liked in this movie, and it happened so early in the movie. This was still during a point where I'm like, "Wow, I think I'm going to like this movie."
Yeah, because I was full yeah, like I said, I was fully on board too because even, even the stuff with the firefighters, like, I know that they were all kinda dumb and just stood around waiting to get killed, but, like, that whole sequence was fucking badass, like, Michael emerging out of the burning house is so cool, like, even watching it a second time, I had to admit out loud, like, "Okay, that's badass," like, him just standing on the porch of this burning house,
Mhm.
like, damn, not even fire can kill
Yeah.
Michael, like, that was cool. And I think going directly from that into that really brutal kill, it like set up a tone that was not sustained
You know
because it
what?
immediately runs out of steam.
It set up a tone that I was down for. Before I jump into the thing that's going to wrap all this up, the thing that I want to talk about the most. Before we finally get into that, I do want to say one more positive thing about uh, David Gordon Green and this Halloween films. And one thing I did like is the fact that every character that was set up in 2018 returned in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought of anything that was done that was clever. The nurse and doctor, the black guy,
Yeah.
they were in the 2018. They were the
For
couple
like 2 seconds.
yeah, for
Yeah.
like 2 seconds. That was cool. The trick or treaters that was wearing the Halloween 3 mask, even though I think it's dumb, they were in this.
Yeah.
Um, and then the lady, the couple that we were just talking about. I don't remember if we saw the guy, but we saw her. She was the lady that was taking the podcast people to Judith Meyer's grave.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I applaud them for doing that, for keeping that type of continuity. I guess it was easier for them to do continuity of their own movie than it was for them to do continuity of 1978 because they fucked that up. Because that segues right into what I want to talk about the most, and what we're ending with
Hey.
is the fucking flashbacks. All right, Katie,
Okay, let's go. Let's
do you
fucking
want to go
go.
before I do, or do you want me to fucking unleash my
Um,
shit?
I'm curious to hear what your what your take on that is.
Okay, here we go. So everybody that I know that loves this movie, or even some people that doesn't like this movie, still loves the flashback stuff. I will not lie. In theaters, before I hated this movie, the flashbacks hooked me a little bit.
Right.
The cinematography is fucking amazing.
Yeah, it looks great.
The lighting is fucking amazing. The costumes are fucking amazing. The sets, everything is fucking amazing. They nailed the look and aesthetic of John Carpenter's original
Yes, they
to
did.
a T. That I'm not gonna lie, when it got to this fucking flashback and the Carpenter music started playing, I
Yeah.
was like, I did not realize that I wanted a sequel that was all flashbacks until this very moment. With that being said, fuck these flashbacks because I have never been so cringed in all my life. My God, here I go, gonna start. We start off with two deputies running down the alley and chasing after Myers, one of which is a young Hawkins. We see Myers played beautiful. I forget what the guy's name is, but it's not the same guy that plays Myers in the rest of the movie. They got somebody else to play Myers for the flashback scenes. The guy that they got to play Myers for the flashback scenes is Chef's Kiss. I'm gonna get that out of the way
Yeah,
first. That was the most perfect Myers since Halloween 2. And the mask and coveralls looked was great too.
it
But
looked
anyway,
great. Yeah.
with that being said, so they shoot at him and they of course miss, and then they regroup with another group of sheriff's deputies. Right? Um, we are smacked in the face with the dialogue of Loomis said they shot him numerous times. Okay, look, we get it. Loomis shot him 6 times. We know you're now piggybacking off of Halloween 2, which no longer exists because everybody's made a meme of I shot him 6 times. So that was like the first, like, okay, well that's stupid. But then it's the acting. and the dialogue delivery from these fucking cops is some of the worst shit I have ever seen.
Mm.
And folks, if my mother turns to this is why I set up a while ago. See, set up and payoff. This is why I set up this is why I set up my mother went with me. If my mother looks at me at a theater and says, "Is this supposed to be funny?" You know something's wrong.
Yeah,
Because my mother was like, "That's some of the worst acting I've ever seen." Those deputies are terrible. And
they're really
and
bad.
the one deputy is I forget his name, but he's a fucking filmmaker. And I'm just like, how? And I'm like, is it that the acting is so bad, or is it just that the dialogue is so bad that the line
I think
delivery?
it's the writing. I think it's the writing, and I think it's honestly, like, we're gonna end up talking for 3 hours, but really a lot of this can be boiled down to it was not sure if it wanted to be a comedy or not, and therefore it failed at being both a comedy and a scary movie because
Well,
it couldn't decide.
and they well, no,
And
it's not that they can't decide. It's because they don't understand what makes a good horror comedy is a horror
yes,
comedy, and there's a fine line of how to do a horror comedy, and they don't know that formula, and they should just not even attempt it. But it's like they
no.
do attempt it, and they just anyway.
I think some of these lines sounded better on paper, and then in delivery,
All
just
these
they didn't
lines
get
on
it.
paper were literally, like I said earlier, it was like, man, this is going to be cool. These are cool lines, man.
Yeah,
And like,
pretty much.
yeah. But anyway, so we're at this flashback. The dialogue is terrible. Um, and I've already established how the Lonnie Elam stuff makes no sense. It makes no sense, and you can't even argue with me on this one because I've already established that there's no way that Lonnie was just scared away from the Myers house, a half an hour, 20 minutes ago, and then left his friends, got bullied, and circled back around, got scared by Myers in front of the Myers house again. It makes no sense. But now we're here, and the deputies enter the Myers house. Okay, I appreciate that they rebuilt that house to a fucking T. Like that house is perfect, and it's like fan service. Yes, we see the broken window from the swinging gutter that smashed it in the first movie. We get it, but it was the moment that we see the dead dog on the floor, and the deputy steps into the room and says, "There's a dead dog in here." And then the other deputy is like, "What? Never mind."
Never mind.
Okay,
What?
it's all that is the filmmakers going, "Hey, remember in the first movie when
Did they
Loomis
said he
and
ate a
Brackett were in the
dog?
house and he got hungry? Remember that line?" You know what that movie did differently? We never saw the dog. You know why we didn't see the dog? We didn't fucking need to see the dog
We
because
don't
we
need to see it.
because
Just hearing that is enough.
we just got fucking scared knowing that Myers killed a dog and ate it because he got hungry. But
Yeah, like what the
this movie had to show the dog. And my girlfriend looked at me. She like when I was bitching about that. She goes, "Well, what's the big deal?" I was like, "No, a good filmmaker, if they wanted to show the dog, all they had to do was show the cop with his gun raised, entering the room, walking by the dog, just subtly glancing down at it, do a punch in shot of the dead dog, and then he just keeps moving through the house. He's not
Mhm.
going to yell, 'There's a dead dog in here,' for no reason. These cops are fucking hunting somebody, and that shit made no
And they're
sense.
going into the house where they think Michael might be hiding, and they're gonna yell
And they're
across
being
the
loud as
house like,
shit,
yeah.
like calling themselves out. Or then the deputy walks up to the window. He looks down and fucking sees fresh bloody footprints, knowing that Myers full and well was just there. But instead of being on guard, he lowers his fucking weapon, looks out the window, and then does the repeat line of Haddonfield, where nothing ever exciting happens. And then Myers jumps out and grabs him. Okay?
Yeah.
You know that he's there now. You just glanced down and saw his fresh, bloody footprint,
But you're gonna put your gun
and
down?
you're going to lower your weapon. You're a fucking fantastic cop. And you're the first person in this long line of people in this movie that deserve to fucking die. Now we're getting into the big finale part for me. So Hawkins fucking blasts his goddamn partner in the fucking neck. And Myers just skips right on out of the room. And in comes the moment that my jaw kind of hit the ground when Loomis pops up. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of fanboyed a little bit because of how much I love Loomis, and
Right.
that to me is what's been missing from these movies is Loomis. Um, but then this happens, and it literally goes hand in hand with everything I've been bitching about not making sense. The Lonnie flashbacks doesn't make sense. Nurse Marion hanging out with these people doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense, and especially this line right here that set up the tone for what was going to disappoint me the entire time. Loomis comes up the stairs and looks right at Hawkins and says this: Officer Hawkins, what happened here? Did Michael kill? Did Michael kill again? Let me tell you what is wrong with this entire fucking moment. Dr. Sam Loomis does not know Officer Hawkins. There's no way possible that he even knows Hawkins because the only people that, or the only people from the sheriff's department that Loomis had any connection with was Sheriff Brackett. He hung out with no other deputy, was around no other deputy. He was solely with Sheriff Brackett that entire movie. And when he wasn't with Brackett, guess where he was? He was by himself, staked out at the Myers house because he was for goddamn sure that Myers was coming back there. Okay?
Yep.
So there's the first problem. But then he says, Did Michael kill? Did Michael kill again? Guess what, folks? If we're picking back off of what just happened at the end of the original Halloween, not even Loomis knows that Michael has killed. Because here's what happened at the end of Halloween 78. Loomis is in the Myers house, or been at the Myers house this entire time, and has somehow miraculously overlooked that the car that Myers stole earlier is parked right down the fucking road. So
Mm-hmm.
Loomis takes off walking. As he takes off walking, little Tommy and Lindsay come running and screaming out of the house, which is Loomis is like, fuck, I better go check. So Loomis goes inside, finds Michael strangling Laurie, where he decides to fucking fire off 6 rounds into the motherfucker, which makes Michael fall off the balcony, right? Loomis goes and checks. Michael is gone, which means what I just talked about, this whole flashback scene, is what happens directly afterwards, which means that Loomis has now ran right up the street where he just was. Loomis has no fucking clue
Yeah,
that
we
Myers has
haven't
killed
seen the
anybody.
dead bodies yet. Yeah, because he didn't. All he sees is Lori getting attacked. He doesn't know that three other people have just been killed.
Right. So, you mean to tell me Lewis knows who Hawkins is and knows his name and knows that Myers has killed? No. It's because you're doing nothing but fanboy bullshit service trying to make a cool fucking movie so you can stroke your own fucking cock and ego instead of doing the correct research. If you're going to do this, fine. I'm all for fan service. I'm all for doing cool shit. But know what the fuck you're doing, do your work, and fucking make a good movie. But you failed on every fucking attempt to tie this to the greatest horror slasher ever fucking made. And you made it into a
Mm-hmm.
fucking joke. And that is it. That's all I got to say. I'm done now. I got it all out. I got it all
He's
out.
you, the This house is clean.
This
We've
house is clean.
exorcised the demons.
But do you get it? Do you get why I'm so mad? Like,
Yeah, because it's like I think that is what is a little frustrating to me because it feels like I I do feel like in some ways a lot of like thought went into these as far as like they really thought they were doing something here and I truly believe that David Gordon Green is a fan and like loves the original and stuff. The problem is that I don't understand spending all this time trying to do these like ham-fisted fan servicey things but not just taking the time to like map out geographically like what is happening. Like how am I going to connect this story to something 40 years ago and make sure that it makes sense? Because it felt like a lot of that stuff was like no one's going to notice that, yada yada yada. It felt like they were setting up some stuff with Hawkins' character that they're probably going to try to pay off in
Yeah,
the third one. This feels like a trilogy that was not planned out from the get-go. It feels like they made 2018 and were like, "Okay, cool, that was successful. Let's keep
right,
going."
right,
And because if they had planned it out, if they had known exactly what they were going to do from the get-go, then when Hawkins is introduced in the first one, like some of those flashbacks from kills would have happened in the first one.
right.
But
Look, I
instead they happen in this one.
yeah, I keep comparing this new Halloween trilogy, and the third one's not even out yet. But I keep comparing this new Halloween trilogy to the newest Star Wars trilogy, which was also a fucking train wreck.
Yes.
And it's because they too did not plan out the trilogy. What worries me even more, and somebody even commented on my Facebook the other day, and it really pissed me off. They're like, "So let me get this straight. Uh, you didn't like the 2018 movie, but you went to go see the sequel that was written and directed by the same people." Like, well, just
It's
because I
like,
didn't
well,
like the
yeah,
last one, don't mean like I'm not going to go see. People forget I'm a diehard Halloween fan. Guess what? This movie I hate so fucking much, but I will still be there opening night of Halloween Ends.
exactly, yeah. Because like, at the end of the day, it's like I know that we spent some time talking about how sequels should be able to stand on their own as a movie, and I fully agree, but since that's not what's happened, um, you might as well treat this trilogy like a mini series that's just continuously running into each other. So as of right now, we only have 2 acts of this story. I have no idea. I don't have the full story. There's not been a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
There's been a beginning and a middle. So it's like I feel like regardless of me not liking this movie, I'm still going to see how it ends because I want to see if
I
they
need closure.
make up for. I need closure. I need to see where they are going with this, and I need to see if some of the things I don't like about kills will be like addressed or maybe like improved or expanded upon in the third one. So it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to fucking be there. And also at the end of the day, if you just turn your brain off, it's still fun to go to the theater and see Michael Myers like stalking and killing
Yeah.
people. So like it's a good like I had fun watching this movie the first time. Even if halfway through my boyfriend and I turned to each other and we're like, this is fucking stupid. What is happening?
Like I said, because somebody else, like when I was bitching about how much I hated, they were like, "Well, I'm still gonna go see it regardless." I'm like, "No, you should." I was like, "Look, I'm not trying to sugarcoat. Like, I didn't like this movie at all, but I still saw a new Halloween movie in theaters. Like, I
Yeah, like that's still
it's
awesome.
still awesome. And you know what, dude? As much as I hate this movie and think it's like one of the worst movies ever made, am I happy that it's making a lot of money and killing the box office? No pun intended. Fucking
Yes.
yes, I am.
Yep.
Um, but I will have to say the only thing that I'm looking forward to Halloween Ends is I am very curious to see if the next one can piss me off as much as this one did. I am literally
Right? Like
curious
can they top it?
to see if they can top how much I hate a movie. Supposedly we're going to get it next year. I don't know. I don't see that happening. Anyway,
Yeah.
they announced these some time ago, and like it was these all three of these movies, the 2018 Kills and Ends, were all supposed to take place on the same night. So Ends was supposed to pick up originally where this one left off, but they recently announced that they David Gordon Green has backpedaled, and now Halloween Ends is going to be a time jump, and it's going to be 4 years later.
No, what? I
This is
didn't know
legit. You can
that.
Google this right now. It's 100%
Oh, what
true,
the fuck?
and it's now going to be a 4-year time jump, and they're going to take place during present day. And get this, and that they're going to address the current social climate with the pandemic.
No, please stop. Please stop. Please, I would need everybody to stop. I need everybody to stop because why? Why does that need to be addressed? We've all fucking lived through it. I want to go to a Halloween movie and not think about that bullshit. Like,
I go to movies to get away from the real world, especially these types of movies, especially a Halloween or Friday 13 or something like that.
no, and like and the thing is that like horror, at least some versions of it, has always had social commentary.
Yeah,
That's always been a
Romero.
part of it. There's always been like not like a message with a capital M, but there's always been a little commentary on what is going on in the world, and people like identify it with it in various ways. But yeah, the difference is that now they fucking smack you in the face with it.
Right.
And okay, so I saw a tweet. I wish I could remember who actually wrote this tweet so I could credit them, but it was like one of the best ways to describe this that I've ever heard. And it was like, when you take your subtext out of the basement and you put it in the living room, your basement is empty and your living room is too crowded now.
Mm-hmm.
So you like keep all that shit in there. Keep a message in there. But the problem is that because of like the news cycle and like the things that gets clicks and gets people arguing and gets excited is when they just straight up say this movie is a commentary on XYZ and here's all the reasons why. And it's like just let it do its thing, and if people want to read into it that way, that's great and we can debate it from there. I think it's kind of just sloppy when you just like shove that shit in there with no subtext. Basically it's just there. I'm a little disheartened hearing that there's going to be a time jump and that they would try to even say a comment that it's going to
Yeah.
touch on current issues. It's like it's not because again, they could have kept that mob mentality shit in there because that shit is always relevant no matter what is going on.
I
The
mean,
idea of mob mentality is bad is always going to be
right.
like
And,
relevant in some way.
here's the thing. Like I said earlier, the giant mob was stupid to me. Like hundreds and hundreds.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, that was
like I
stupid.
said,
They're literally like riding outside of the hospital and like
yeah,
tipping over like an
yeah,
ambulance. Like,
that to me was stupid. Now the smaller mob again, that to me I'm okay with. You want to know why? Because like you just said, that's always been kind of a thing in horror. Like all the way back to the 30s. Look at the Frankenstein movies, like the angry villagers
yeah,
with their pitchforks and torches and shit. So like
yeah.
that,
Or the idea of like the vigilante idea of like, well, okay, the cops aren't doing enough, so we have to take this into our own hands now.
right?
I think a big problem with it is just how like news media reports on stuff and how filmmakers have to talk about their work
Oh
now.
God,
Like I feel like because now instead of a movie comes out, maybe even the filmmaker as they're making it is like, okay, I want this to be a commentary on XYZ. But they don't tell you. They just put it in the movie and then people watching the movie are like, "Oh, like was this trying to say XYZ?" And then at that point the filmmaker would be like, yes, you nailed it. Like that's exactly what I was going for. And now we can talk about it. But what happens now is that months and sometimes years before the movie even comes out, they will do an interview where they're like, this is going to be a commentary on trauma
hmm
and on the current social climate. And it's going to talk about mob mentality and like protests and stuff. And it's like, great. So you've just like incepted me with all of that preconceived notion going into this movie instead of just letting the movie speak for itself and
right,
then we can talk about it after.
right,
As a filmmaker, I would be really disappointed in like because what happens, I feel like, is that they give an interview and they spend all this time talking about this thing that they made that they love that they are excited about and everything that went into it and all this stuff, and they probably make one offhand comment about like, yeah, and there's a little bit of social commentary in there too, like we're gonna touch on that a little bit, and it's like a 2-second thing that then becomes the headline.
hmm
And it's like similar to how like as like a woman, when you make a movie, you're not allowed to just make a fucking movie. Everyone wants to ask you what it's like to be a woman in Hollywood and what it was like to like make a movie from a female perspective. It's like, fuck off, just ask me the same questions that you
You
would
ask
ask anybody
anybody.
else. Like,
Yeah, and God, don't let me go on a tangent about this, but I want to say something about that, and it goes back to months ago, me talking about Roger Corman. I hate that so much. Like you just said, when they what's it like being a female making a movie, blah blah blah. Well, I don't fucking know. Go back in the '80s since it's, or even further '70s since it's been going on. I'm not,
yeah, like
that's like
there's
the
always
first
been women
time.
making movies. Like we might have not been the big A-listers and we might not have been like who everybody was talking about, but like there's always been like women
Yes,
making movies and involved in the film industry. And so like and the problem is that nobody talks about it and people don't have like good like media literacy or like history anymore. So like you'll pull out a movie from the 80s and be like, yeah, it was directed by a woman, and everyone will be like, whoa, what?
yeah,
Like that's so crazy that they let a woman direct in the 80s. And I'm like, it wasn't the fucking Stone Age. It was
right.
like like I know that that there were some things that are very very different to how they are now, and like we've progressed in a lot of ways, but like God, it wasn't like women just like were still just chained to their kitchens like in the 80s. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up
Well, hey, you know what? A
with
segue
that.
to help end this on a somewhat. It's not funny. It's actually fucking sad, but oh well, we're trying to
God
make light
damn
of
it.
it. Um, is speaking of the media, and since we just spent like 2 hours or more, 3 hours. Oh my god, let's look at the
Oh
clock.
God.
Bitching about this
I'll cut it
movie.
down.
I love that right before the movie came out, that there was a petition to remove the fireman scenes
Oh, I remember that. I
because
was
Michael
just like,
Myers killed a bunch of
what is
firemen.
happening?
But the latest is that Michael Myers is homophobic because he killed Big John and Little John. The world we live in today.
Okay. I mean, that isn't that's a catch 22 with the horror movie though. It's like would I love to see some horror movies with like gay couples as the lead? Hey, look, the new Fear Street trilogy had it. It was great.
Yep.
I love those movies. It's happening. So I feel like it's weird to like cherry pick that out of like that's what you got out of that was the thing that you that's what you got out of watching Halloween Kills.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Well, you know what I got out of Halloween Kills?
What?
Nothing but a fucking headache. That's it for me. How about you, Katie?
Ah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I guess the only other thing I wanted to say was, again, this was a vent session for us. We really went in hard on this movie. There were some things that I liked, which I tried to touch on here and there. At the end of the day, my first time watching this in theaters was a great time. Like it was fun, and I still find Michael Myers to be very scary and like very effective. And so at the end of the day, it's fun to watch Michael, bebop through stuff, and it's not that deep. It's not that big of a deal. But I do wish that after 40 years of retconning that we'd have a little less lackluster of an entry here. But what can you do? That's just the way she goes.
Yeah, I guess my final words are: if you want to watch a good Halloween sequel, watch Halloween 2 and 3. Other than that, I mean, four and five, give or take. Six, meh. H2O, all right. Resurrection,
Yeah.
blue.
Resurrection, you should watch if you want to hear Busta Rhymes say trick or treat motherfucker, which is like the only thing I remember from that movie.
Yeah, but you know what? Somebody asked me. They said, "How can you sit there and straight face say that you like Halloween Resurrection more than Halloween Kills?" And I keep telling them that there are actual moments in Halloween Resurrection that I enjoy, and
Yes.
there is fun to be had with that movie.
Yes.
Kills just pissed me off from beginning to
Yep.
end, and I
Yep.
yep.
But again, if you're listening to this and you loved it, you probably hate us now, so sorry. But I'm really glad that you liked it, and I think that's great, and I think that's what makes the whole world go around. So I really think we should not be like fighting and insulting each other's intelligence over a fucking slasher movie that we had a difference of opinion over. So like again, if you loved it, that's great, and I'm happy for you.
Yeah, don't insult your fellow horror fan, or if they believe something differently than you, because you know what, if you're like that, only thing I can say to you is shut the fuck up.
Just shut the fuck up.
That's all that we have for you folks. We really enjoyed this. This is something new for us. Usually we do Video Express where we talk about old VHS horror movies. This was something new. Maximum Overview is touching upon new release films. So we hope to do another one again soon, and hopefully we'll be talking about one of Katie and I's favorite franchises, VHS. So we'll
Yes.
catch you again on Overview where we talk about VHS 94. But we want to thank our sponsor, the Alamo Draft House of Winchester, Virginia. The Alamo Draft House celebrating cinema of yesteryear and today, featuring a wide variety of beer and adult beverages, as well as a rotating menu of delicious foods. Alamo Draft House Cinema elevates the cinematic experience with their commitment to exceptional picture and sound. Catch the latest blockbuster, Halloween Kills, or your favorite cult film at the Alamo Draft House in Winchester, Virginia at 181 Kernstown Commons Boulevard.
All right. And, thank you for everyone who's tuned in and listened to this. I know we've been away for a few months because life got busy. So if you're listening to this one, you're a real one. And we hope to have some more episodes out in the near future. So in the meantime, if you want to catch up on some of our older episodes, or just pop in and say hi, or if you want to nicely and politely tell us why you may disagree with some of our opinions, you can hit us up on
Don't hit
all
me
the
up.
socials. Yeah, don't hit Matt up, but you can hit me up on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff at Video Express Pod. And you can find all of our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your episodes. So check us out.
So thanks for joining us, guys. We really appreciate it. We love talking about all things horror, even if we love it or hate it. So until next time, I'm Matt.
And I'm Katie.
And we'll catch you here at the Video Express.
Bye-bye.
Yay.